Hello, everybody, and welcome to the most important exit interview of the season. Maybe we still have Veronica left, but my name is Naomi. I am the host of the Survivor New York Bannerman Island Exit Interview podcast, and joining me, as always, we have Chris. And Chris, who do we have today in the studio with us?
My longtime good friends, the winner of Survivor New York, Bannerman Island. We have Stan. Welcome,
What's up,
Stan.
guys? Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you for having me. Woo!
Congratulations. Confetti, confetti, confetti.
The
Fireworks.
buff that we got for winning. I still have it. It was really cute.
How does the $1 million feel, Stan?
Well, I'll retire. I can retire now. I said if I make my first million, I'm done. So it's amazing to finally retire from the state of New York.
How come you said that with like a southern accent? I felt like you were talking like Pete.
No, I didn't. That's how I normally
we have to get into that backstory. So really
Yes.
quickly, Stan has been with Survivor New York since the way beginning, which was like my season 0, I call it, which is like when I had a bunch of just friends from all over the area and across the country come and just play, so I could sort of test out this idea that I had played Survival Challenge and said, well, maybe I could do this. And that season, which Stan participated in, he did pretty well. He got 5th place. Became the groundwork for what Survivor New York is today. And so Stan joined the production for season 1. You also were in production for season 3. You brought Pete and Sam. So the big reason why Pete and Sam played Survivor New York, if you love those two characters, and I think everybody does, is because of Stan. Stan pushed for that. So again, I'm like begging Stan to play season 4. It just didn't work out. He was supposed to be there. And then everything worked out for season 5. And then lo and behold, it was the right time. After a string of many losses in the LRG community, online games, finally Stan received his crown. And it really rightfully so, I would say. So congratulations, Stan. Long story, but congrats.
No, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. I think, Survivor New York forever will hold a special piece in my heart. And, I've had a lot of experiences, a lot of great experiences, life experiences. But, the first win in an LRG is always great. Like, it's always a great feeling no matter what. And funnily enough, let's even harken back to, because I had to find out about Survivor New York 0 somehow, right? Because I just don't associate, I just don't randomly go up to upstate New York and be like, hey, there's a game.
Oh no.
But whatever. This is probably going to be my last exit interview. So, but Chris and I knew each other from way back because we played these online games, and I've never really, that just was my side thing. I really liked Survivor and I really liked playing. So I went, when I was in high school, I was living in the Philippines, Asian time. We played these games on AIM, like AOL Messenger with Chris when we were like 12 years old. And we've never officially met. I just knew of him. Never really met him in person before. Was Survivor New York 0 the first time we officially met in person, Chris?
It was the first time we had met.
Wow.
I don't even know how I was able to convince you to come up, because what happened was Stan was in a car with a few people that were driving up from DC that we had all met in an online game. So you drove, I think, with Daniel and
David Realfoot 2.
Yeah, from Survivor Realfoot season 2, the final 2, which are 2, I feel like, great competitors in the LRG community. One of the best final
legendary.
Seriously. So you got driven up here by them. I still remember the moment that I met you in my backyard. It was so crazy. But here we are, Stan.
We are here.
8 years later? Yeah, 8 years later.
8 years later. And wow, that was crazy. Survivor New York 0, although I did fairly well, I didn't really have agency I was
Yeah,
carried by the alliance of four in the car. I
right.
was fifth. I was the fourth wheel. I got taken out, and I was like, oh, cool. But then I got to meet Chris, Gary, the winner of season 3 was there. And then Emily, who played Reelfoot 4,
Yeah.
was in the car. So this is like, so I was living in Baltimore at that time. I was in medical school rotations in Baltimore, Maryland. And Daniel and
Yes.
David was living in DC, like right outside DC in Virginia, and same with Emily. So when the opportunity came up, and they were like, "Hey, you want to play a game? Chris is hosting this like game in New York. We'll do a weekend out of it and just drive back to like Maryland and Virginia. It's only like 4 hours." I'm like, down. So I just hopped on the car and just drove to upstate New York, like in medical school. And now, like, oh,
Wow.
that's
In
so long
medical school.
ago.
That's really
This is
funny.
before
Yeah,
Naomi. This is pre Naomi. This is before I played Reelfoot 3, because I played Daniel and
that's
David were in
right.
Reelfoot 2. They brought me in, and I was like, "Hey, I'm playing in Real." And Daniel told me, "Hey, there's this game in southern Tennessee called Reelfoot." I'm like, "What's Reelfoot?" And he's like, "Yeah, me and David played, and they didn't spoil the ending because they were making episodes at that time." And I was like, I was so confused. And then they told me to apply, and I applied. I obviously got on and met Pete, got Pete on Survivor New York 3 with his best friend Sam, hosted them in my apartment in New York because I was in residency in Brooklyn at that time, and the rest is history. So, Reelfoot, so Survivor New York was really a catalyst for how I even got into Reelfoot. And this, like, for
In
those
this
that don't know,
world,
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, just fill in the gaps that from my story. Like, I don't really play a lot of these games here and there, but I've been doing it for such a long time here and there that I've accumulated my track record, which is not great.
and I have to say also, Stan is really great at design. He actually created
Mm,
the logos, I think, pretty much for most of the seasons of Survivor New York, except I think one that Daniel did. And you also helped in like elevate our buffs from like the very
yeah.
basic AliExpress buffs to like the actual legit ones that you would see from the show. So if you are ever looking for somebody to help you with buffs, maybe reach out to Stan with that, because he's the guy that makes probably the best like faux, not real show ones, I
Full
would say.
buffs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really awesome.
it's really a passion of mine. Graphic design. I don't know why. I think my creative spatial is just like funneled into making.
Graphic design is my
It's not
passion.
because I'm in I don't have to design medicine, like graphics in medicine. Like, that's someone else's job, right? But like, I really like it. I enjoy it. I've been doing it since I was a kid, and
Mhm.
now it's cool to help out. I don't have that much time, but if you hit me up, like, I'm very happy to do so. Survivor
Yeah.
New York 7. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I
Let's
know. Well, you
go.
know what's so funny is like
I
we're
know.
designing the logo now with Stan, but it's like me and Naomi are such perfectionists. Like it's like we know we have so much ability to control it this time. I feel like more than ever before. So we're kind of like, no, this twig on this logo is
Wait,
like
you're
needs to
saying
go
that
this
I'm annoying
way.
about specific details? No, I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't say
Ju-
that.
Juxtapose yourselves with
It's like
Parker, who's
this
like,
blue is just a little too dark. This is a little too light. And we're like, okay, just pick something. Stan's gonna kill us.
that's so funny. Juxtapose yourself to Parker. Parker's like, Stan, I need a logo and a buff for Real Fit 11. I'm like, here you go, Parker. Parker's like, oh, that looks great. Here you
I'm not surprised.
I love him.
I even edited. I'm like, oh, I don't know if that looks right, so I changed it myself after I had given
Yeah.
Parker the.
Sam, let's jump into this.
All right,
So,
let's go.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about Days There. I feel like for you, it's a much different experience because I think you probably knew of almost everybody that was there. And we kind of understood from some of the previous interviews that you had to sort of pretend to like meet people for the first time. So, talk about getting there and like all the way to the end of Night Zero.
Yeah. So, night zero, I'm a social person. Like, people. it's my job. Like I have to walk into an empty room of patient, like a patient and a mom or dad, and I have to be like, "Hey, I have 5 seconds to build rapport." Right, so I have like, hey, how's it going? Blah 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 blah. Like I can connect with people fairly easily, but it's not even intentional. It just kind of happenstance to be that. I think there's a lot of luck on Survivor, and that kind of started my luck almost, and I just capitalized on it. I walk. So I guess I have to address it because um, people were shocked, and I was kind of even shocked. Episode 2, when Kayla was like, Stan's my number one ally. And I'm like, and I got a couple of pretty puzzling DMs from cast members like, what? Sharif, I'm talking to you about you. But like, he's like, how the hell did Stan make how did Kayla? Like, so confused. But honestly, I got on the train and I knew how to get to where you were because I lived in New York for a while and I had moved out at that time. So I was like, oh, I'll meet you at the station or something. And Alex and Paddock picked me up. And then in the station was Kayla, and I knew she was playing. And I looked at her and we were kind of talking. I was kind of talking to Paddock and I'm like, congratulations. She's blah, blah, blah. Like, I saw your season. And then me and Kayla kind of were looking at each other, kind of like a lot of people, like Jeremy and Veronica looked at each other in the car, right? And then they were with Robin. There were a few people that had like Robin, I mean, no, not the Kristen and Danny. Like saw each. That was me and Kayla. Like me and Kayla looked at each other. We're like, I'm down to kind of work with you. And we were getting our bags. So I'm like, if we ever had a chance to work together, I'd work with Kayla. I would have 100% worked with Kayla if she was on my starting tribe. Like there was no question in my mind. If Kayla happens to be in my tribe, I would have worked with Kayla fairly closely. I just never did. And I think when I got to your house, Chris, and I'm like, hey, Chris, and having been there before and having been on production, I knew, the people like Joe, I knew a lot of people, I shook the hand, blah, blah, blah. And I like turned to the backyard and the first people I see is like Laura and Danny. And I'm like, oh my God.
I walk into the backyard.
I mean, a little backstory. You had just played Survivor Brooklyn South with them
Yes.
not too far long ago before that. So
No.
it was like a whole reunion there. But
Yes,
Yep.
yes, Laura and I were on the Brains tribe, and the infamous Brains tribe of Survivor Brooklyn South 2 got annihilated. First 4 boots were me, Laura, Emma, and Jamie Potter, who's like Danny's best friend. And me and Jamie were the last 2, and Laura and Emma were the first 2. And we were just like pre-merge, we were like, this sucks. And so we left and just got like, we had some drinks, had some lunch, and we kind of became close. And I knew the past that, Danny, Jamie, and Danny, Laura had. And so when I walked in, I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So I like reached my hand out to Danny. I'm like, hey, Danny, how's it going? My name's Stan. And Danny goes, my name's Danny. Like, obviously Laura knew, and I'm like, hey, Laura, how's it going? Gave her a hug. And I'm sure to their eyes, they were like, oh, damn, Stan's playing with the same goo goo gaga that I had. Like, I would have 100% rocked with Laura. And obviously, we know what happened with Danny and I. But those two are like 2 people that right off the bat, I'm like, oh gosh, they're playing. Funny story, Chris and Naomi, you guys might not remember this, but maybe a month or so before Survivor New York 5 was about to, when the cast was gonna get revealed, because you guys didn't really interview me. I was supposed to be on for Survivor New York 4. I couldn't make it because of my training schedule. And so I was like, if I'll make it to 5, and I committed to 5. And you guys were like, there's a cast and there's people that we want to cast but can't put it in the cast if you're there. So if you're in, tell us you're in, but like we don't want you to half-ass it, kind of. I like paraphrased along those lines. Like if your heart's not into it, we'll give it to someone. And I'm like,
I remember this. Yes.
I'm like, no, I think if I commit to something, I'll do it. And I committed. I took time off, and I got a flight, pretty expensive flight from Kentucky, might I say.
But I do remember it was sort of like last minute kinda. And I remember Naomi and I were like freaking out, and we're like, Stan, you need to tell us. I if I saw it Facebook, I could pull it up, but it was like, you need to tell us now. And then you were like, okay, fine. And then you did
I'm
it. 'Cause
in. I'm in. Right?
Okay, so
Because
Yeah.
so
continue
anyway,
the story.
and then I knew, and then I turn right, and I'm like, oh my, Kristen was there. And so Kristen, I've never met her before until she was my handler for Live to Give that was played 6 weeks
Yep.
ago, and I got third boot. I was out third again. I
Yep.
lost the redemption challenge, and I was out very early. If you guys saw the Live to Give on YouTube, my season, like I was the favorite by a mile to win a returning challenge against 3 people that are like reality TV, like Jack, who's my boy, like McCrae and Aaron Meredith. Like they didn't have a chance in like a mental challenge against me, but Jack was guessing, and he was guessing right for some reason. He slept, and so I lost. So
It was crazy. I remember that was one of the most nuts things I've ever seen happen in a live game, I have to say. That comeback challenge.
It was insane.
Great.
I
Go watch
was
it on
like,
YouTube.
literally, yeah, watch it on YouTube. Heartbreaking. But like everyone in the production was like, Stan's coming back. There's just no, I was studying, and I was studying because it's like a medical school test. You just study, and you're like, you kind of paraphrase it, you kind of get what they're talking about, get the gist, know the keywords, you're good for tomorrow. They were sleeping. They're like, yeah, Stan, let's just not. So anyway, I came into Survivor New York. I came into Survivor New York with a chip on my shoulder. And a lot of my decisions that I made in Survivor New York was because I have never really gotten deep in a live game in a very long time. I was taken out flukily, third boot and fourth boot in 2 games that were almost out of my control. So I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. So I kind of came into day 0 aggressive, socially aggressive, without really coming off as, I can come off as like, oh, okay, let's just have a couple of drinks, had a bar, suddenly we're besties, and I saw Kristen, who was my handler, and then I had a feeling Robin was gonna be there, and me, I didn't know Julia was gonna be there, but Julia and Robin I had played in the online sequester meeting during the pandemic.
Answer this question though, truthfully. Who did you know 100% was going to be there that you did talk to before and I'm not going to be mad. I'm just curious who you.
It is what it is.
It's sure. Robin. I think I was pretty 100% sure was playing.
Okay.
I didn't know Laura,
Hi,
Danny. Brian. Hey, Brian. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Brian from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
I was on prod. Yes. I didn't know Danny. I didn't know Laura. I didn't know Kristen. I didn't know Julia. I knew Robin, I think. And then I heard that McKenna might be there, but I didn't know McKenna. And then because McKenna was part of her own game,
DCP org,
yes. So I heard that there's a game in New York. McKenna might be there. I'd never really spoken to McKenna and coach, but I knew there was maybe, but I didn't really talk to anyone except maybe pleasantries with Robin. I'm like, Robin, if I see you, like, you know how it is, because Robin and I, like what they said, we always work together. There was in every single mini and every single or like mini that we played, Robin and I worked together, and Robin outlasted me like all of them, except for maybe one, where they got like LOS'd out very early. But I was coming in. Because Chris, mind you, I was living in Louisville, Kentucky. I was in fellowship. It was right after the pandemic. I didn't really, I was too busy to pregame. Like, pregame? What? I didn't. But in day 0, I saw a lot of familiarity. And the words of Sandra, when push comes to shove, you stick with who you know, but I think the key to my game was making relationships and eventual alliances with people I didn't know. Right? I had no idea who the hell Sharif was, and Sharif didn't know about me. Julia, Robin, and Danny would have cut me, and Laura would have cut me in a heartbeat if they had a full-on chance, because they knew who I was, they knew what I was capable of. But there were people like Sharif, Ed, that they were strong, strong players, but they don't know that, that I'm a vet, basically.
100%. I mean, I feel like in Sharif's case, it almost was his undoing,
Mhm.
trusting you to that 100% level, where Danny was trying to throw your name out, but Sharif had your back.
Never had traction, right? Danny
Um,
never truly got, and Kristen, on the other hand,
yeah,
we never had, Kristen and I barely talked all game. Really, the biggest Kristen and I conversation was was in the final five when Kristen was trying to get rid of Sharif in lieu of herself. That was the one of the only true conversations strategically that Kristen and I had a heart to heart with. But we had an understanding on, like, I got you, you got me, like, let's just keep it on the DL. And we would have taken shots at each other if we had to, but it turned out how it is. And I knew Kristen knew and Danny knew, like, how we kind of all operated almost.
yeah.
But I the best part of day zero was, like, I was looking over the corner and I see this big burly dude, and I would talk to this guy. I've never met him before. And it was Sharif Al Hajj, like, standing in the corner, like, with his big blue eyes and his big smile. And I'm like, he's a kind of a cool guy. He talked about, like, basic what we did, blah, blah, blah. He was from Queens. And then he was like, I went to the Philippines. I just came from the Philippines. I'm like, what? That's kind of cool. And, like, he named
That
off
is cool.
places. And so me and Sharif connected because, we like to travel. We have a lot of common. Clearly, socially and strategically, we had a lot in common too. But Sharif and I hit it off great. And the funny thing is Sharif hit it off with everyone great. Hit it off with Danny great. Hit it off with Brienne great. Hit it off with Ed great. And Sharif was like, we played very almost similar games socially, because he's someone I was like, oh, I got my eye on you and look out. Like, I'm happy to. And then I think at the fire, like in the nighttime, when there's like it's kind of like mingling, I met Edzo. And I was like, oh, Ed, like, Ed, you're
Yeah, I
Filipino.
was
And,
just
like,
gonna ask how your relationship with Edsel started.
I was just the people that look like me, people that it's very rare. I think this is understated. And, like, I think I don't like a lot about the 40 plus survivor, but what I do appreciate about the 40 plus survivor is the fact that there is diversity. And what I
Yes.
appreciate about Survivor New York is that there's a thrust to not just cast, like, X amount of white people and just let it be, but being cognizant about representation. And I saw Ed and I was like, people like me, like, don't Filipinos is living in New York, don't do this very often. My friends, I can't drag anyone to do this. Like, it's just not part of how we are hardwired as Filipinos. But we love Survivor. Family loves Survivor. Everyone watches. Everyone knows the big players and whatnot. But so Ed and I kind of hit it off really well too. And then I'm like, okay, Robin, there's Julia that I already have, and then Ed and Sharif, and Tak was someone I've never met before. But I'm like, well, bring him in, like he. And then that's when I'm like, they're 6 out of 18. That's
Mhm.
damage. That could be, if
For
this works,
sure.
this could be damage. And I
And
already
it
had,
did work for you, I would say.
yes, yes, it definitely did. I think the Dragonflies Alliance, I think, existed in my head more than it existed in
It
anyone
only
else's.
existed in
Yes,
your
it
head.
did.
That's for sure. I mean,
Exactly. But
I saw it mentioned. I've watched all the footage. I saw it mentioned only twice, and both times
it was
by
me.
you. So I would have loved to just see some sort of conversation, or I don't know, but I believed it. I really do believe it. It kind of was there, and it definitely was apparent in Ed's final vote, because he really only spent much time with you on that night zero and in that swap situation. And other than that, he spent no time with you really. Well, I guess in essence, he also spent no time with Danny or Kristen. So it made the most sense. But I think it was such an underlying reason and a brotherhood that the two of you had. And I think that's
Absolutely.
the the three of you and Brienne, I think, would have been like such a cool Final Four.
I would have lost in
Um,
any permutation, Chris.
yeah. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Let me take that. And Kayla there too, because I think the five of you would have been kind
Kayla.
of cute. But I know you wouldn't have done that. I know you wouldn't have done that. But I just want to get into like the day one because obviously you get chosen
Night zero,
to.
the serve.
Oh God, let's talk
Remember
about day
when this
one.
the stupid challenge where you split the
Oh
tribes?
yes.
Oh
Well, it
my
wasn't
god.
stupid. You guys just sucked.
We did, and I was like looking at the camera, and I was like, "Here we
Oh
go."
yeah. That was
I
that
know.
was
And
funny.
Chris and I were like,
Monica
he's
loved
thinking his
that.
ass voted out because he's looking at the
Oh,
camera instead of.
I'm fucked. Like I'm screwed. This is gonna be like Survivor Brooklyn South. This is gonna be like Live to Give again. Like I'm gonna lose every single challenge, and I'm done. Like that's it. Like
But can I
that's
say, like, the production shitted on you guys and thought that you guys would lose all the challenges. We were worried about it, but you guys surprised us. You guys could have won every single immunity. That fourth one was such a fluke. You got the ball in there right away, the first two, and then I don't know, something happened, and you got frustrated with Andrew. I thought it was kind of funny.
I did. I get very competitive. Like, if you
Oh
can't
yeah.
tell, I'm like passive like 95% of the time, but I get really competitive like 5% of the time. And like you saw it. It was like clear as day. Jeez.
Yeah, no holding that one back.
Mind you, one more thing that I think nobody's talked about, and probably and no one really will, because Veronica might never do her exit interview, and she'll never watch
Well,
it, so she'll never
Well,
whatever. But Veronica, when the tribes were divided, Veronica approached me for an alliance. My
oh,
first purple alliance was actually Veronica. She's a teacher. I was a pediatrician. We did the pleasantries, and like we were outside the big tent, kind of fixing our bags. And me and Veronica were side by side. And Veronica was like, "I want to work with you." And so for me, I was like 100% like I'd love to work with you, Veronica. And that's why Veronica and Jeremy and I kind of had that
mm,
three to begin with. That was day zero. That was Veronica. You know, Veronica is an absolute sweetheart. She is, you know, as we say in the South, bless her heart. But like, if she wants to get something, she'll do it. Well, she'll
that's so
try to at
funny.
least, right? So
You
she
know,
got her
she was
alliance.
good. She was very good
the
in
boss
that.
ass bitch. She's getting shit done.
Yeah, she got exactly what she wanted done. She had an alliance with Jeremy and I, and you know, but Jeremy had said in his exit that he chose me because Veronica told him that he was with me. I probably wouldn't have taken Jeremy out first if had we lost the first challenge. I think,
Interesting.
and then you know, day one. Let's talk about day one, I guess. But yeah, I mean, um,
So,
what happened? What
so
happened
you
in day
got
one?
chosen to make the decision. You chose to give the tribe an advantage in the first challenge
Oh yes, yes,
versus
yes,
going
yes,
for the
yes, yes.
idol. And in doing so, the tribe did this big search. Julia finds the idol, and you know, tried to cover it, but then she got nervous and showed
I
everybody. And you were over there, and you could have found it, but you didn't. So talk about
yes.
those little things.
Oh yes, I remember now. Day one. Okay, so what's in my head? I get this option. Tribe. I need to win a challenge. I haven't won a single LRG challenge in 3 years. Like lost
Yep.
every SBS challenge, lost every Live to Give challenge. I'm gonna win. I don't care. I'm gonna win this first challenge. There's no way out about it. I just wanted to win immunity for my tribe because that will win immunity for me. And so I was like, "Yep, done. No brainer." And I was kind of, and so I chose it, and there was a freeze. I couldn't do it, couldn't search anything. But I was
Yeah.
standing on the top of the rock where Julia found the idol, and I was like, "Oh, this is so beautiful. This is Bannerman Island. Like, this is not caught on film. Like, welcome to Banner. I'm the king of Bannerman Island." Like, I did stupid stuff like that. Like, and the idol was like right below, but I wasn't technically allowed to search. So I was, because I had already chosen the
Right.
challenge option, but I was just taking a walk around, exploring the beach. And then Julia, me and Julia had like, all right, you already know Julia. Like, I got you. Like, we are the two Asians in this tribe. Like, we have to work together, and we did. Julia was my number one throughout the whole game. Julia was my number one. Um, and she found the idol, and I was like, I like gave her like the thumbs up in my back, like no one's looking. I'm like, go, go, go. And then she picked up the idol, and I'm like, oh my God, just go, like, just hide it. And like, I'll block Veronica, push Veronica over, because it's me, Veronica, and Julia. And then, Julia, she gets nervous. So, and she sold it to Veronica, and then Veronica made it a tribe idol where whatever, what I thought
The
about that.
game would have been so much different if Julia did not tell anybody, though. Like, that could have been a very interesting situation, especially when you get stolen to the other tribe, because maybe Julia could have been a target versus Andrew in that situation.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have told anyone.
We gotta talk about the idea that the Purple Tribe would have insisted on searching for hours upon hours if they didn't know where their idol was. Like, you guys would have been out there forever.
That's true. And you guys were the love tribe. I remember Jeremy's interview was like everyone was chatting with each other, getting to know each other's lives, really bonding those first 4 rounds, because Julia found it so quickly. So it gave you the time and the opportunity to really bond as a tribe, which I don't think we've seen so much in a lot of Survivor New York seasons, because every tribe has had to go to tribal so quickly. You guys were able to win 3 right off the bat. So I feel like this tribe really had a bond, and 5 of you making it into the merge definitely led this sort of opportunity for you to get to the end and to win, because you didn't even go to tribal council
No.
until the merge, and you didn't even receive a vote in the entire game.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that was a huge reason why I hadn't, someone said it, I didn't have to show my cards. I
Right.
never, I truly, I didn't until the final 5.
I agree. Well,
Really.
I mean, you did vote Annie out, so I would say you did have
I
to show
didn't
your
have a
cards a
choice.
little bit there. You didn't really have a choice, correct? I mean,
But I
here
did.
and
The
there.
thing is, I did, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I
Let's
have a
talk about.
choice.
I want to talk about the pre-swap things. Anything you want to mention about the pre-swap rounds? Because obviously,
Yes.
okay.
One thing that was never brought up was how close I was with Annie right away. I think Annie,
Yeah, she brings it up a little bit in the confessionals, but it's never really.
it never became a story. But in round 3 or something, Annie and I were walking. Like, I think round 1 and round 2, I was kind of like, yeah, I think Jeremy and Veronica and everyone wanted Annie out. Like, and I wasn't gonna really say or do anything, but we had won. And then around 3, Annie and I were going for a pee break, and we are just like talking about life and how she found out about this and whatever. And I've never met Annie before. I don't know who she is. And she's like, oh, we have a common friend, Emily Forster, who is like a friend of mine. And so we kind of clicked, and I was like, I would love to work with, again, in that infamous brains tribe of Survivor Brooklyn South 2. How awful. She voted me out, Emily. Emily voted me out. Like, she had cried because she didn't, was between me and Alex. And I'm like, please keep me. And she voted me out. So by that, like, Annie and I became close, and we really had a good working relationship. Because I never ever wanted Annie to be the hinky, the name coming out there, being out there. I think that's when I shifted my target from Annie to being like, hey, I think I can get Julia and Coach to go Jeremy. Because, Jeremy did say in his interview, he was like, Stan kind of had that holier art thou, like bravado almost, like whatever terms they use. But like, I felt, and a lot of people felt, that Jeremy and Veronica were in their high horse calling the shots, because they had the numbers with me and Julia in their minds. And those that really never got to pan out. But I think at around round 3, Annie and I had a really strong relationship. And then that is what really led me to have a good relationship with, and then kept on through. And when Annie's name was out there, I didn't want to do Annie. I never want, and then by virtue of me never wanted to do Annie, Sharif didn't say Annie, and then the target got switched. But that never kind of came out there. And yeah, and so I think the relationship with Annie was something that we didn't really get to highlight.
Stan, the one thing I'm really curious about is when you got kidnapped to Esopus, because there's not a ton of footage there, and I'm wondering from your perspective, like, what were you trying to accomplish when you were
I
over
was
there?
trying to build alliances with all three of them and lock it in. By three, I mean four with Kayla, because I had already. I knew there was gonna be something going on. I knew Purple was gonna be a hot mess coming out. Like I predicted Jeremy. I was a little confident because I thought Annie would link up with Julia and Coach by virtue of like Annie was close with me at that time because Annie was like, yeah, except for Stan, Jeremy's my closest ally. But like we were that close. Like and I thought that Annie, Julia, and Coach would link up. But I kind of said it in the confessionals, was my game. I was prioritizing my game. How can I build inroads? How can I take advantage of being in a tribe with someone, I really clicked with Sharif, fellow Filipino. I had a car alliance on day one, on day zero, and then Brienne, who was, I already knew right away. It was Ed who pulled me aside because Ed and I had the Filipino brotherhood thing. Pulled me aside. He's like, man, yo, crazy shit happened like the first round. Like, I'm like, Talk, how did Talk go home? Because I thought we had the six. And he's like, yo, Talk. And he told me, I'm like, Laura, what happened to Laura? Blah, blah, blah. And Ed, I'm like, who are you working with, Ed? And he's like, me, Sharif, Brienne. And I'm like, okay. I was coming in already knowing Kayla was on the outs. And instead of being like, hey, Kayla, like, let's find a way to get you out of here, I knew I had that relationship with Kayla and we were on swap together. I would have worked with Kayla 100%. But at that time, if Sharif, Edsel, and Brienne were willing to take me in as a fourth person, that really opens up my options in this game, whether or not I stick with them in perpetuity. And, it's an option that did really pan out for me in this game. And so and my strategy for that was, I'll tell them everything they want to know about Purple, except the ones I don't want them to tell
Yeah,
tell
you
them.
told
Like
them that you would
a
vote
lot.
Jeremy out.
Yeah, I told them. They were like, who are your targets? Because human nature is, you can't just expect trust. You have to give trust first for people to get your trust. I think like in Survivor, people are in many, many seasons Survivor, people just expect information. But the successful players give a little information to get a lot back. Like the Parvati's, the Cerise, they give a little inkling of information, just enough. And then they have control because everyone will scramble in the way that they would, fall. Like Suri did it perfectly in like, Micronesia, and every single season she's played. Suri's not a physical threat. She doesn't hide behind immunity challenges, but what she knows is how to plant the perfect seed. Parvati is someone who's amazing at the social aspect too. But the people that are unsuccessful at Survivor are just like, you trust me, like, RH, like she has no choice, but she has to trust me. She has no choice. And the people that are like, those are the ones that are unsuccessful. But I think in Survivor and in human nature and like how people are as beings is you want to feel like you're connected to someone. And I had as human beings, we connected on a different, like I connected with Ed in a different level outside the game. Same with Sharif. And Sharif is like one of my best friends in the community, I can say, since after this game, despite everything that happened.
And you
But like
stayed at his house actually, so it's
I did like 3 times already because I don't
that's a
live in New
real
York
friendship.
anymore. So every time I visit his house, there is a knife on the countertop from his wife, Marcelli, ready. It's like, you blindsided my husband. And I'm like scared in my sleep that she'd blindside me and pick me out of her house. No, but
Stan, I have to ask this question before we get into the swap. This is something I've always wanted to know about the tribe. So you basically were with every person on that tribe, right? Everyone in purple was an ally to some degree. In a what if situation world, you guys lose the first 4 challenges. Can you talk through like what you think could have happened if you guys had lost more? Like who would we have lost this season if
we would have lost, I think, Annie first. I think unanimously Annie would have gone home first. I wouldn't have that chance to build a relationship with her. She was the scapegoat. People like Jeremy and Veronica would have wanted her. Well, I don't know about Jeremy because I didn't know that the Jeremy anything. But if Jeremy was confident in me, Jeremy, Julia, and Veronica, and we said no and no coach, I think Annie would have gone home first. I was not writing Julia. I was not writing Coach. I don't think Coach would have ever written my name down. That's how close, Coach and I built a relationship at the start. Coach would have is someone who's loyal. He probably would have crushed me in the end if he ever made the final three with me. But I think Jeremy would have gone home second. Veronica would have gone home third because we already had majority and Julia had the idol. And I think, to be completely honest, me and Julia would have voted out Coach knowing that Julia had the idol and that there was no way Coach can play anything. Julia and I would have had, it would have broken my heart, but, Julia's my homie. Julia's my girl. Till this day, Julia's probably someone I still talk to frequently. We rocked it, and Julia texted me one day. She's like, "Oh, I'm super glad that she played another LRG. I know she's had, you know, the not the most fun experiences sometimes when she gets very emotional,
Yeah.
to say the least. But I'm glad she played like Big Brother Buffalo just recently, and she's like, I'm not built for Survivor. I'm like, Julia, you're not. That's not true, because she's like, we had an alliance together, and that was a huge reason that we both made it very far. And I think that's a valid point. I think Julia and I think she would have been my, because I think Coach would have gone home. So we would have lost Annie, Jeremy, Veronica, and Coach.
So going into the Purple Tribe's only tribal council pre-swap, and then we'll get into the swap. You don't get to go because you got, swapped over. They vote out Andrew, Coach. You probably, I think, were thinking that it was going to be Jeremy going home. So how surprised were you when you saw that it was Coach?
I was pretty surprised, but I keep my poker face. I have a very good poker face. So I was like, I was like this, just talking to you like normally, like just waiting in the challenges, like with everyone like clapping that they made it, whatever. But inside, I'm like, oh my God, they got rid of Coach. What the hell? I need to find out from Julia what exactly happened. Jeremy had to be a part of it for sure. That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, get me Julia. Julia, what the hell happened? I wanted to like do that. But, a lot of my game was, if I didn't have to do anything, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
I think that's a common theme in my game.
So we get to the swap now. You see your tribe, it's stacked. You probably knew that. We've already talked about with other people that most likely if you guys had lost, Jeremy would have went home, this and that. But you do get Robin, to give you this very powerful advantage if it works out. Can you talk about that advantage and getting it from Robin?
Yeah, I was watching that again, and I was super flattered. I did not expect it, and I was like almost super honored that I was very honored that Robin trusted me enough to give me the advantage. I knew that Robin and I were close, and I would have 100% rocked with them all game, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that later, but I was ready to rock and roll with Robin. I wasn't ready. I was rocking and rolling with Robin at that time. You know what I didn't know is I didn't know how big of a target Robin truly had. Like their name was like out there, like fairly significantly, and like, yeah, I think I wouldn't have gone home if we had to do 3 votes. I wasn't sure because at that time I had that, like, I don't know, maybe I would have gone home, but there was such division within the Green Tribe, and I had a good, like, Kristen and I had a good relationship. We didn't talk as much then. Danny and I were like, I'm like, Danny, okay, I got you. And then Andy was someone who I'd never met before, but I had a really good
Yeah.
relationship with in day zero. But I think, and then Robin was obviously one of my ride or dies in the game. But so I guess the decision was, again, owing back to my subtle strategies. If I don't have to do anything, I won't do it. I get this advantage. I read it. I'm like, oh. And Robin's like, okay, I want you to win immunity and give it to me. If I won immunity, I would have given it to Robin. I wasn't fully trying to lose, but had like it fall into my lap, I would have taken it, like, and I would have given it to Robin, like 100% fat.
I think it's such an interesting so, Stan, one of my questions is like, so let's say you do win it. Are you saying I found this advantage and I'm, because it's a really interesting way of showing your cards, of saying, okay, I've won this advantage and my closest ally is Robin. Or do you say Robin won this advantage and they want me to give them immunity? And then
And
it becomes, okay, why did Robin give you the advantage? Like,
so what would Stan do is not put Stan in that position.
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that's
And you
exactly
did
what
that.
I did. I didn't want to show my cards because what would, like, Sharif's eyebrows would go like, what?
Mhm.
Like, what the hell? Like, Julia would be like, Stan trusts Robin more. Like, there would just be such a devastating reaction from everyone else. And it didn't, had it be a different advantage, like extra vote or like half an idol, I'm like, yo, Robin, let's get half the idol. I'll give you the other half. Just don't play it on me. Like, if it was something, that wasn't like, I don't like to show my cards. My allies know where I stand. I just don't want everyone else to know where. Like, there's has to be like a cloud in this game particular.
Right.
Probably can never happen again. But I wanted to have like as big of a cloud. It's like a big, puffy, white, friendly, loyal cloud, but let it be a cloud that I don't have to get out of. And I never had to get
Right.
out of.
But you know
They were
what,
just like,
Stan?
oh,
That
yeah.
advantage was for probably somebody in a minority situation. That was really who it was going. We were hoping it to go for. So for you to be the one to end up getting it is kind of like funny because you were never going to be like, we didn't know at the time, you were never going to be in that bottom
Yeah.
position with someone else fighting, like with somebody else to stay in. And that, like, for example, if maybe Robin had won or Kristen had won in that moment and Kristen shared it with Danny, like that could have, or Veronica shared it with Annie or something, like that could have really had a significant impact.
Yeah.
So it
And
really
Yeah.
changes who has it.
the mutiny, there was a mutiny option there too, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
my question was, I can't remember the fine print. Was it make that decision in that moment, or did I have time to do it?
So basically at the next challenge you could have went to a different tribe.
But I couldn't have lasted 2 votes and then mutiny in the future time.
No, it would have been at
No,
the
you
next
had to
challenge.
decide at the moment.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
because I was thinking like if it was down to 4 greens and me, and I had that, I would have mutinied,
That's funny.
and Robin would
And
have
then
gone
and then Robin
home.
would have probably gone home. Yeah.
I was thinking about that though. I don't think, even if you guys had lost 3 challenges, I do not
I
think
think I
you would
would
have
have
been
gone
voted out.
home.
I think that Danny, Kristen, and Andy would
Andy
have
would have
voted for
pulled me in
Robin, and
Yeah.
because
just because they didn't trust Robin 100%, but
and
a lot
Andy
of them
didn't.
did want to work with you, and with Jeremy already gone, that would have brought down the purple numbers, and it would have been sort of like this green and purple, let's work
Correct.
together
And take out the
sort of thing.
blues.
Yeah.
But well, the blue because my and then Kayla, Sharif, and Ed would still be in the game, right?
Yes.
Then they would if Kristen, Andy, and Danny would have worked with me at that time and in place because I think they trusted me over Robin for many
Right.
reasons, and I think I would have rocked with them. More solidly than I really did, because I did have a very loose alliance with the Greens. Really, the whole game,
Mhm.
it was my blues and my purples. Well, purples, kind of. but I had half the purples, I guess, because I was tight with Annie, Julia, and Veronica before she threw my name out.
Right.
But it was. I think it's so interesting how many permutations there could possibly be.
There's so
Well,
many.
Stan, something I wanted to ask you about in this game, especially, is like there's a world where you get swapped onto a tribe with, like, let's say you take the spot of like a Veronica or like an Annie, and you're on a tribe with Edsel and Kayla and
Oh
Sharif, and you're on a
my
tribe with
gosh.
Julia. What does that world look like to you? Because
I'm
then you're
not
going to show a lot
sure.
of cards really fast.
I'm not. I think we need to win a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
We would have won the memory challenge. We would have won the block challenge.
You and Kayla would have been
Right.
kind of a lethal puzzle combo, I have to
Oh my
say.
gosh, I would,
Okay,
and then Kayla
I
and I had
agree.
that secret alliance. That would have panned out. There would be a lot more Stan
Yeah.
and Kayla if I had a chance to play with Kayla, and nobody knew that. The lethal alliances are the ones that nobody knows about because everyone could have figured out me and Julia. The big boys was spilled to Kristen by Jeremy. Like it wasn't secret, but it was hard to get us out. But like if people didn't know we were working together, that is
Yeah.
dangerous.
I agree.
But yeah, I think we would have won. I think we would have won a lot of challenges in whatever tribe I was on, but I think it would have been very difficult. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I really don't know what I would have done if I was a swing vote between Julia, Veronica, Annie, and then Sharif, Edsel, and Brienne, or Kayla, and like I wouldn't know.
You
I don't
know,
Plus
know.
McKenna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
McKenna. We probably
you
take
you were in a
McKenna
tough
out first.
spot.
I
I
would take McKenna
remember
out first.
there was a confessional you did, and you
Hateful.
were literally saying that you were aligned with everybody. Do you remember that confessional? And it was just like,
Yeah,
it was true. You kind of were like, it was never filmed, or you didn't make it on camera like an alliance with McKenna
I didn't
or
really.
Andy at that point. So it was kind of like everybody except those two. But then when you got to a certain, like the merge, you had Andy, and it's such an interesting sort of things that don't really happen that often on the show. Also, you got to the merge without ever having to vote anybody off, while everyone else had suffered through a lot of it throughout the game, at
Yeah.
least going once or twice or three or four times in some cases. Um, you didn't have to stress. That's the thing that I think that helped your game a lot. You didn't have to worry and run around. Those LRG strategy sessions can be super short or super long, and it could go any possible way. So I think that really helped you leading into the merge. Would you
Yeah,
say
I
that?
think, yeah, absolutely. Like 1000%. Like it was my brand almost. Like my brand was like, okay, let's chill, let's listen to everyone, let's do, but then I don't want this and I'll do this. But then when we're chilling, we're just like, okay, we're good, we're not doing anything. And I had a lot of like, oh, we're just hanging around, not doing anything. Like in the game, even when tribals were happening, because as long as it wasn't me, I'm like, there was a fine. You guys can do whatever you want. I remember I had like a public. It was like 6 people in front of me. I'm like, you guys can do whatever you want. I'm not. It's not gonna be me and whatever. So there's a lot of that, but I think that a lot of it was because I put myself forward in challenges. I think I owned up to my threat level. Gone are the days like, oh, let me hide behind, let me fly under the radar. Didn't work in Brooklyn South All Stars, clearly, because I didn't even have a chance because there's like, yep, snipe him. I don't think Survivor New York helped. But like it, I put myself in front as the person that they could count on for challenges. That made me an asset. And it's not, you can't even say, oh, I'm a big strong male and big strong men are supposed to be more superior than women in challenges. I didn't win those challenges. Memory challenges are fair game. Cube fixing puzzle, yeah, I lifted the pieces fairly easily, but it was fair game. Like there were a lot of challenges that weren't necessarily because I'm a man and I'm 6'2", and I can be strong and push people over and like and carry people. It wasn't that. So I think by cementing myself as a challenge threat and owning up to the fact that I am a big threat and like just running with it. I'm like, let's win every single challenge, guys. I think I told my swap tribe that. I'm like, Danny, you're a beast. Kristen, you're very smart. Like Andy's like 6'10", and like we have Brienne, and like everyone's so amazing at these challenges. Let's just win everything and not worry about it. And we did. I was like, let me just take the memory part. And I remember that like I literally came in. I'm like, I want to win every single challenge pre-swap. Like every single challenge if I could. Like I am not leaving anything to chance because let's be real, LRG gods are not in my favor before the merge.
Yeah.
It's
For
not.
sure.
So the only way I
Yeah.
can get through is if I don't have to face tribal council.
Well, Stan, let's talk about the post-merge now because it was
Uh-oh.
kind of a chill pre-merge. But I think that what happened is the post-merge hit, and people. So essentially, everybody but you and Jeremy had gone to all these tribals, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was in the first half of the game or what. I mean, I guess you could say some of the green had it a little bit easy too. But everybody's gone to at least one tribal, and then your fellow purple cohorts get just thrown through the gauntlet, right? And they come out with Sharif.
That was okay. Watching the purple girl gauntlet, because I worked with them fairly closely when I was in OG Purple. And like when I was watching the episodes, that was the first time I literally saw everything unfold. And I was like, oh my God, they're a hot mess. Like they're all working together, but they had like 5 different targets. Like they couldn't agree on who to target. And at the end of the day, they stuck together. But I'm like, oh my God, this is so like, if I didn't know the outcome, I would have thought they'd turn on each other. Like, oh my God, like I feel like the Julia and I alliance really worked because Julia is super cerebral and she thinks about plans and very strategic and whatnot. I'm like, okay, let me execute it. That's great plan, Julia. Let's put it to motion because Julia tends to, always overthink, doubt herself. And that's why Julia and I really complemented each other. But seeing Julia, she could, and then Veronica wanting her way, and I'm just like, oh my, this is kind of iconic, but like it would have been a very different like shake up if I was in that tribe.
For
Yeah.
sure. But I want to like get into the fact that you went from like never going to tribal to going to that first merge tribal. Like that was chaos. It was like 14 minutes of straight strategy. It was flipping back and forth. Jeremy calls out Kristen at tribal council.
Oh my
I
God.
love the moment between you and Julia. She whispers, you whisper, and you're like, I'm not doing that. And she's like, wait, you're not doing that? And you
You're not
walk
doing
away.
that?
You just leave her there.
Yeah.
And you're like, you make the plan with Sharif, and then that's what that's the guillotine on Jeremy. Like, talk about that, folks.
I love Julia. I think there were a few moments like I've watched bits and parcels of it, and like I've laughed
Bits
super
and
hard on a few
parcels.
rewatched, and a lot of them were Julia, and I do it in like a loving way.
She's
But
so funny. Like it's
she
insane.
is so funny, like the way she's like, huh? Like a lost dog. It's like you, like she's not a dog, but like how she looked at me, she's like, huh? Like you're not doing Danny? And I'm like, no. I just walked away. But that didn't mean we didn't trust each other. We really trusted each other. We just didn't agree on who to go. I think Julia and Danny just never clicked, and Danny and I think I was a huge reason why Danny didn't go home that round. Had I just been like, you guys do whatever and I'll vote for Danny would have gone home for sure, without a doubt in my mind, because Sharif wouldn't have. Man, it was between Danny or I think Annie.
Yeah, Annie's name was
Annie's
out there a
name
lot.
got traction, but I'm like, but Annie, again, something that wasn't really seen was me and Annie having a strong alliance and relationship, and was not ready to let go of Annie. Not that time, not in a very long time, because Annie's someone who I know would have, and I don't think Annie would have had the connection with like Kristen and Danny as much to like, or Sharif to like I don't know, what do you say, that to cross reference the fact that I was working with a lot of them. And I think what really, if it was a 39-day game, I'm screwed because they have so much time to like talk. And oh my God, I'm working with Sam. Oh my God, I'm working with Sam. Oh my God, I'm
Yeah,
working with Sam. Oh my God,
that's
I'm working.
actually
Oh
such
my
a good
God,
point.
let's just tell Stan this is the plan and let's take him out. Right? In Realfoot, no, I think got two different stories, but like those are like longer games where like people knew I was with the boys. There were in Realfoot 6, like they knew I was with the boys. There was a 6-person boys alliance and the 7 outside, and they just took me off and then took every single boy out. And then, alas, that's what happened. But in Survivor New York, a lot of the what happened was people were almost, they were worrying about other things, right? They were worrying about,
Well, I think my interpretation is that you were somebody who was like, I'm solidly in your camp. That is the problem. Is you were solidly in everyone's camp, right? So
right.
everybody thought, okay, don't worry about Stan. I can trust
You're right.
Stan.
You're right.
And then everybody else is like, oh, I don't know you. You're on the Green Tribe. We've never met. Blah blah blah. Kind of came to a head. I think especially you'll notice it's a lot because obviously Brienne and Sharif don't go home until the final 5, so it's a lot of fighting between purple and green. And the takeaway essentially is I don't know these people, so I'm going to go after them. But I know Stan. Everybody knows Stan. So you're not a problem. You're not someone to worry about. Jeremy voted for
Yes.
Sharif. Let's get him. Like it just, that's
Yes.
how it kind of always comes out. Or like Danny came in
Yeah,
second place. Let's vote him out. Like
exactly. And I think that's what I wanted to happen, which is to kind of be in everyone's good books. And that's part and parcel with not showing my cards. I kept my cards very close. I didn't have to go to tribal council. No one knew where I truly stand because I didn't have to like put my foot down until I really had to. And I think what I did was subconsciously I slid myself in and took the role of Edsel in the Sharif Brienne alliance. I joke with Sharif a lot. I'm like, I'm just a taller, fatter, but same nationality. We're both
you just got a
Filipinos.
new Filipino and threw
We
him
got
in
a new
there.
Filipino, just as loyal, Sharif. I'll just be a right hand man the whole
Yeah.
time, just like Edsel. And like, part of it's me selling that to Sharif subliminally by every single Sharif plan. I'm like, okay, you go, Sharif. That's exactly what I would do. That's what I wanted to do, but I wanted Sharif to be the one to tell everyone else the plan. But it's something I wanted to
Yeah.
do. And then so I like almost slid myself into the Sharif and Brian alliance as the Ed, an Ed that can be a little bit more sneaky because Ed would have rocked with them till the final 3. Win or lose, go home. Like if Ed was in the position at 5, he would have gone straight. There was no question.
Yeah.
But I fully aware that A, Ed was on the jury, B, there was sentiment. There's like, I just lost my guy, like Brienne lost her guy, like they were 3 together because Ed told me everything in episode 4 when I got kidnapped. Ed was the one spilling the beef. I didn't have a reason to be close to Sharif, as close as we are now, I guess, but Ed was the one who was a catalyst in that. And so I trusted Ed. And I think by virtue, let's call it like, Filipinos look alike, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, yeah, I'll join your alliance because I'm Filipino and I'll rock it with you. And I did. But I think the Julias, who I was working very close with, till this day, I have never written Julia or Robin's name down. Never. No matter what anyone can say. And Robin had said that, but like
Right.
I Robin wasn't and Julia weren't privy on how close I made myself be with Sharif and Brienne.
Yeah.
I think, and then it kind of just happened that way. And when the time came and we had to pick a name, it wasn't gonna be Annie. I did not want it to be Danny because I'll get to it with Danny later. But I was just like, Jeremy, And I had already planted the seed in old Esopus. When we got kidnapped, I'm like, I would have voted for Jeremy. So Sharif knew I would write Jeremy's name down, and I did.
Yeah.
Right? I think, and I don't know what the hell happened. And it's everyone's kind of talking about idols, and everyone's talking about like Jeremy and Kristen had into it, and I was like not aware of what was like. That was not in my like in my mind at all. Like I wasn't thinking of idols. I wasn't thinking of throwing people under the bus. There's a lot of stuff, especially the stuff that happened with Jeremy and Kristen, and like in Kristen's mind, like she was like expressing what should have happened a lot of the time. But in actuality, what really happened was mine and Sharif's plan, which when we got our way, once the Jeremy train just got the okay signal from me, Sharif told Robin went to Danny, and this is the way I save you. Boom. Right. And I went against my purples, but like Julia knows I wasn't writing her name down. Annie knows I wasn't writing her name down. The only person I had to do some damage control with was Veronica, but that was the purpose, right? To split Jeremy and Veronica up. And I think I did.
I think
I
it was the
want
right
to.
move for sure. I mean, like,
For
Yeah.
me, for
why
me,
why
for
would
me.
people let 5 purples into the final 10? It didn't really make
Correct.
sense. It kind of like, I
No.
think the 5 of you kind of knew like there's way too many of us. Like one of us most likely is going to go. Let's try to see if we could get some traction on Danny. It didn't fully work. I think if you really wanted to, Stan, you could have got the 5 purples through
Oh
to
yeah.
the next round. Like if you really wanted to, you could have got the 3
Yeah.
blues, gotten out a green. But that just sort of leads into the next topic, which is, you get rid of Andy, which I think is surprising in the fact that you were the real catalyst of the big boys alliance in this game. And you chose to work with Sharif and Danny as the big boys. It could have been Andy, but you guys, well, you did choose to vote Andy off. So I'm just curious, what made you guys want like Andy versus maybe doing Kristen? And oh, I guess Kristen was immune, but I'm thinking maybe if she
Yeah.
didn't win immunity, she would have been the one. Or like, why not maybe give up Veronica if to keep that extra big boy shield in the game? I guess.
I think the honest answer is I let Sharif do whatever the hell he wanted that round. And
I kind
Sharif
of
had
felt
so
that.
much paranoia that I didn't know. Sharif and Brienne, like Sharif was thinking about the idol the whole time. And never did I never had a confessional about where I thought the idol was. Like from episode 1,
You didn't.
I took the advantage. I went the challenge beast route instead of like, let me scour to find the idol. I knew exactly where the idol was, Julia. I think the next time I brought up the idol was with Danny. When Danny suspected idol, and I'm like, I don't even care, Danny, because I know if you use the idol, it wouldn't bounce on me, so I don't care. But then, that was the first time I really brought it up, and that's when Brienne tipped. I didn't know how much Sharif and Brienne really advocated to get. And I think when Sharif, we were picking targets, who was Andy up against? Who was the actual target that round?
So that it was like Veronica and Julia being split on because of I think Julia's idol, and then everybody flipped it
Yeah.
onto Andy last second because the greens were there
Right.
was 4 greens.
That would be a no-brainer for me then, because if I had an option not to vote for Veronica or Julia, I remember, because they were like, Stan, who would you vote for? I'm like, I'd have to vote for Veronica here because Julia's my girl. I've said that multiple times. I'm like, if you guys are gonna split, count me as a vote for Veronica. But that's what I was telling people. But at that time, me and Veronica were still closely working together, because I didn't really remember. Mind you, I think Jeremy's an incredible guy, and after never really connected during the game, but after the game, he's a kind human, very intense in these games, and in the pre-merge, I never talked about getting rid of Veronica. If you don't notice that, I never ever talked about getting rid of Veronica until she brought my name up first and Sharif had told me, because I was intending to go deep with Veronica because I knew it was her first game. I knew that I can strategically outmaneuver my like her. And then I don't know, and I know Veronica's someone who I would go very deep to the game with because she's almost predictable in what she would do. If Veronica would try to blindside me, which she did, it came right back. I would be loyal to Veronica if I was given the choice. And so at that time, it was between Veronica and Julia, and then me and Sharif were like, dude, like, look at these greens just sitting there. And and Sharif was like, ooh, and here's all the idols. Like, this is Andy probably has an idol. It'd be perfect time to get rid of the idol. And I'm like, sign me up. You know what? I'll get all the purples for you, Sharif. You don't have to say anything. And I went up to Veronica and Julia, and I'm like, this is the plan. Sharif and Brienne are down to take out Andy. And that's the funny confessional was with the conversation with Veronica. Like, I don't trust. Like, Sharif has not talked to us about the plan. I don't trust Sharif, Veronica. And she was like, that's the reason why Sharif's not talking to you, because it's too obvious. But I had told Julia, this is what's happening. And Annie, this is what's happening. I don't think there were no cameras that were filming that, but I'm like, I think I got Sharif and Brienne. I worked with Julia knows because in pre-swap, actually, the last challenge where they voted out Edsel, they asked me to throw the challenge. So they wouldn't have to
I
vote
remember
me.
that.
Yes, because Ed and Sharif were like, dude, throw the challenge. And I was like, Julia, work with the guys, work with Sharif and Ed. And she's like, yeah. So Julia knows that could be working with Sharif, and by virtue of Sharif, Brienne. And so when I kind of told that plan to Julia, I was like, okay. I think it was really cool blindside. In the words of Pete Morgan, we're finally playing Survivor. You know, um, you know, it was such a cool. I love Andy to death, and now I'm in Spokane. Andy's like old stomping grounds. Like, now he's a good friend of mine. He's introduced me to his buddies here, and he's such a stand-up guy. Really solid at the game, and I think if Andy could have gotten deep, he could have had a very good chance. Now, why couldn't we taken a girl out at that time? And we sacrificed the big boy when the big boys alliance were there. I think we needed to. I think we needed to sacrifice one to not let the girls think that there is one. No,
That's a good way to put it.
like by taking a guy out in the hands of two of the big boys and taking Danny's right hand man out, it only made Danny closer to Sharif. Danny was closer to Sharif than he was with me, but I had that secret deal with Danny. But Danny and I knew each other's flavor. Like, I know Danny's flavor and he knew mine. Part of the reason I kind of wanted Danny to stay is I felt awful that this is Danny's permutation every single game he plays. He's the merge boot in every single game he plays, or like close to the merge. And I knew if I gave Danny that not olive branch, but like, hey man, I'll get you out of this predicament you're always stuck in. He's always the biggest threat. He's such an easy vote. I think Danny would reciprocate it in the future somehow. And I trusted Danny a little bit more than I trusted Andy somehow. And if I had to sacrifice someone, I would have sacrificed Andy because I knew how Danny was going to play.
Can I tell you?
So,
I think it's so funny when you said Danny in the future. I thought you were talking like this is the challenge, and you guys are gonna play another game together later down the line, and like, well, he's gonna protect me in the future game. No, but
Danny's no.
Why you guys were in such a good. Oh, sorry, I'm so behind in all my things.
Yeah. So again,
part of why I think your alliance with Danny and Sharif worked so well, as opposed to like an alliance with even Julia or Veronica. And partially, I think why Annie fits right in. Annie really works her way into this major alliance is because you guys knew what you wanted and you were all on the same page. I feel like Veronica would go from Danny to so-and-so to this person, and she was just trying to find what she wanted to do. And, Veronica had never played one of these before, and I think was really finding her footing whereas you and Danny and Kristen and Brienne were so grounded and like, this is who I think needs to go next. And it really worked to your advantage to be surrounded by those people. Like, I think that
Yeah.
that swap tribe is the total key to why you won this game.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I think the relationship that I felt like the relationship I had with Kristen and Danny was a lot looser than the relationship I had with Brienne and Sharif. They were willing to cut me, and I was willing to cut them at any point. It just so happened that we were. But the thing is, the fluidity of the game is I could be okay with voting Kristen out one round and then working closely with Kristen in another round, and she got it. And I think Kristen is an incredible player, and what she said in her confession was like, I wouldn't be making that pitch if I didn't think that that worked for that person's best interest. And she had me lock and key. Like, we'll get there, but like Kristen is an incredible player, and there's a lot
Yeah,
of
she is.
people.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people in that game that are really strong players. Like Danny is a calculated. Like, he's a very smart guy. He makes smart, strategically sound, calculated decisions. But the thing about Danny is it's predictable, right? That's why it's not in a bad way. I just would know
Right.
when it's time for Danny to cut me. But and I would just put in Survivor. I think I'm no expert in this game, but in life you have to look at what you have to put yourselves in people's shoes. Like if I know, Chris, if we played a game together and we were like on a starting tribe together in an org, for instance, like you could have easily been like, Stan's a huge threat, take him out. But I'd be like, put myself in Chris' shoes. In what universe would it make sense for Chris to take me out this early in the game where he could work with me because I'm a solid ally? My track record proves that I can work with people. It's not obviously I'll never do a game where I'll work with everybody. I think I have to draw the line. I think in the future game, if I ever play again, we have to draw a line in the sand. This is the people I'm working with. But I think I've proven that I can go and march on deep, stay loyal to the people that I've given my word to until, I have to take matters into my own hands. But I think that's what people kind of saw in me almost. But I understand how it can probably never happen again. But in this time, I knew that if Danny was saved a couple of times and it had my fingerprints on it, maybe not my blood, but like my fingerprints on it, there could be a point in the game moving forward where, hey, Danny, this is what happened in the merge boot.
Yeah.
Whether it's unspoken, like, let's keep Stan around or two. And that really didn't manifest with Danny, but that manifested with Sharif. I think that relationship with Sharif kept me safe multiple times. I could have gone
Yeah,
home so many
for
times.
sure.
But Sharif knew what he was getting. I was loyal to Sharif, like until like we'll get there, but like I would have lost. I would have lost hard.
Yeah. Let's
I
let's
wouldn't
get
have.
into the Robin vote because I feel like
Mhm.
that's like
Yeah.
really the first time in the game that we see you not really get the way you want, but at the same time, you're the one that leaked information that did get Robin out. So it was like indirectly you did get Robin out, which so
No.
talk about that moment. Why did you go over to them and like the way you even said that made it just seems very pointed in the direction like, hey, let's get rid of Robin. Then you backtracked everything and it like I don't even know if you had another conversation with Sharif and said, "Hey, Sharif, I'm doing Veronica. Can you please do Veronica?" Like, talk about that hot mess because that is a hot mess.
It was a hot mess. The answer is, and I'll come clean, and I've told Robin in private, I didn't know. Like, that was so out of character and off brand. It was not a strategically sound decision at all. It really was such a it was an outlier in my game. My game was under the radar. Don't say, well, under the radar, whatever. Under the radar. Don't do anything strategically if you don't have to. Be in everyone's good graces. Let the votes fall as they may. I wasn't working with Danny or Kristen that closely at that time. I could have just let one of them go. Like, fine, Danny's a big boy, but I have so many allies. Danny going home could have been okay for me. I didn't really have a solid deal with Kristen at that time, and if the numbers were going there, I would have been fine. I think the true answer was I got spooked a little bit, and I had to play defense. I've never had to play defense the whole game. Um, and in sports, defense wins championships. And I was a little taken aback by Veronica throwing my name out. I was very confused, upset. I had like it's a I think harken back to the Veronica incident that happened before the Robin vote or Robin incident, but I was a little rattled, and I think it just spit out. Like, how, like, for not even a Freudian slip, because I didn't want to. I didn't want the avalanche to fall on Robin. Like, I wanted Robin in the game. I mean, but I made a mistake. And
Yeah.
in Survivor, how many times these survivors say something off and it gets their best friend voted out. Like, happened so
Mhm.
many times in multiple seasons of Survivor, over and over again. And just because I was playing such a you know strategically and socially sound game doesn't mean I'm perfect.
But you know what I think is so funny too? Like, say it was Sharif and Robin switch scenario and it was like Sharif was telling that to someone else, I think it would not have resulted in Sharif being voted out. It only resulted in Robin being voted out because Robin was never like truly in this majority situation
Yeah.
in the game so much. So it was very
Yeah,
unfortunate because Robin had just come out of a minority situation with Andy being
yeah,
gone, and then you say that coming from your position being in the majority and
yeah,
theirs in the minority, and that's just when it kind of was like, well, it seems pretty easy coming from Veronica and Sharif, and then it like slowly went that direction. um but when we get to tribal council, the unaired piece that I talk about the last couple times, there was a scramble. Julia asked you at tribal council, who should I play for? I think you told her to
give it
play
to
it on
me.
you, um, and which confused the fuck out of me. I'm standing there trying to like keep a straight face. Julia's like, "What the fuck?"
You know how, like,
Like,
in Sharif's exit interview, he's like, he made two mistakes that could, like, two different mistakes in the final five. I made two mistakes that could have lost me the game. Number one was throwing Robin's name out there when I didn't have to, because Robin was my number one, and I think I could have beat Robin in a lot of the challenges deep. I know Robin would have taken me out. They told me they were going to take me out, and I would have taken them out too. However, um, I didn't think that was the right time. And number two, oh, I don't know. Like, it's part me. Like, okay, I told Julia, hey, Danny's playing the idol on you. That's why I just rewatched this episode, because that was one of the episodes I didn't have very clear in my head. But, like, I told Julia in front of, like, Kristen, who told Danny, hey, Stan spilled the beans to Julia. But Danny was like, it's checkmate. And I was like, Danny, it's checkmate. There's nothing Julia can do. I'll just tell her. Like, there's nothing I could do. Like, but then reading people, reading human beings and what makes them tick is the epitome of Survivor, especially when you're in the final three, right? If you say that to, like, a Sharif, like, whoever, like, whatever, it's not a big deal. But Julia gets so emotional, and she thought, and that was my final words to her, like, give me the idol. Why? Like, we didn't cerebrize this, Julia, because me and Julia would have, like, these strategy sessions a lot on air. Like, what was our best move? What's our best move? Who do you have? Who do you have? And, like, by virtue of me working with Brianna and Sharif, really, Julia was protected, but I didn't know how. I didn't know. I think it's when Julia was like, I should have gone first and, like, waited for like 15 minutes. Probably if you allowed her to wait, she'd still be making the decision now.
Yeah. She'd
um
still be deciding.
still
Yeah.
be at the tribal council, like, one whole pandemic later, like, she'd still be sorry, I'm kidding,
yeah,
Julia. But I think Sharif lost trust in Julia that round, and so the next round kind of happened. But Yeah, if I kept my mouth shut, there was a very. I think Julia would have told. I think Julia would have voted for me to win because there was no reason for Julia not like we were like literally working so. But I hurt her feelings. I hurt her feelings because she
Right.
got played. She got played. She thought in her mind she got played like a fool. That I
Right.
knew what was going on, and I just wanted the idol for my selfish reasons. I wasn't going home, which I should have just, and I should have gone first. And Julius, I should have kept my mouth shut. In hindsight, I just let Julia go and
Yeah.
admitted to her in the final, Julia, I know you were gonna go, but I couldn't do anything. There were enough votes on you in the nullifier, like I couldn't do anything, and like
But
there
you
was
know what,
really not.
Stan?
Mhm.
I'm very impressed that you were still able to get Robin's jury vote
Yeah.
despite everything. It just, I think I said this before, but I'll say it again. Like I was re-editing, the finale, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I forgot who voted for who. I kept thinking that Robin had voted for Kristen, and then I'm editing it the week before I have to post it. I was like, holy crap, like Robin voted for Stan despite everything. And Robin really put aside personal, maybe sad feelings about being voted out, or maybe anyone telling them about you throwing them under the bus, and chose what they thought was the best winner for the season.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah,
and it shows your relationship with Robin um, did not
Mm.
affect what you both were going to do to each other in terms of turning on each other, but you knew that at some point it most likely was going to happen between the two
mhm.
of you, which sort of leads into the next topic with Julia, because it doesn't happen in Julia's case. And I feel like she felt very burnt by you, even though you didn't vote for her. But I think she sort of depended on you to maybe like get her out of this ditch that she sort of dug herself into. Do you think
Yeah,
there was anything you could have done to save Julia that round?
no,
That's
No,
it?
I mean, I think Julia was no, I think Stan's totally right. Julia was so painted into a corner in that moment. I remember, like, when the round started, I was like, "If Julia gets out of this, it'll be a miracle," and I
there
don't think
was
it's gonna
a there
happen.
was a
It's
scene that I
true.
just watched with Danny, me, and Sharif, the big boys, kind of come up. There was a lot of big boys. Yeah, I know. Like a lot of it didn't really happen on air because men are boring. That's what I like. Men are boring. Strategy, just
Correct.
straight to the point, no drama, and that's why I want to work with guys. Like I always try to work with guys because guys straight shot. This is what you do. A little bit more predictable than women. Like I've worked with Naomi. We've worked together. Chris, we've
Wow.
worked together. Like I mean, I've worked with a lot of strong women, but and then the different and women are super strong allies, very loyal. But I think men are a little bit more not not primitive, but like more straightforward in how they play the
Well,
game.
I
Let's
think
let's
Stan, this is how I would phrase it, is I think that someone like Julia, she was so paralyzed by the decision making.
And that's a
And I
Julia
think
thing.
Ooh,
well, but I think you see that a lot in games is that women cannot find the like just like the way that like women's lives go. You're not told to be the decision maker, to be the executor. You're told to be like the person who listens to the executor. And so it's very easy, I think, in Survivor, as we know, like the stratification of society for women to like sort of default to a man's position because they feel like if they challenge it, then the man looks at them and says, "Well, you're challenging your position with me, and I should vote you out." I think it affects Danny and Kristen a little bit too. I think if Kristen had gone off and had done her own thing, if Kristen told anybody about if Danny had an idol, I think Danny would have been like, "What the hell? Like this is totally not an okay
It would have been a
alliance."
completely
But
different thing.
right,
I
damn, that
don't
was a
think I
great.
had that.
I mean, that was really great. I just want to say, like that, I
Absolutely.
never
uh,
really thought about Survivor or even LRGs in that way, but people listening, like,
Yeah.
that's such a important thing to talk about, because it's like, if Julia had come up with this great strategy in the game and pitched it to Sharif and Danny, I don't think would have taken her seriously. But if Stan had pulled through saying the same thing, 100% would have had respect. And I just think that it sucks so much that we're still like that in a society. But thank you for
Well,
bringing that up,
yes, I think that's
Naomi.
Well,
absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely right.
yeah, and I don't even think it's like a misogyny thing, but I think a perfect example, Stan, is like you saying
Right.
we're not doing Jeremy, and Julia's like, what? And then it's like moving on. And like that's how easy it can be, right? Is to think about
Right.
whether you want to panic over something or whether you want to just get right
I,
to the point, like you're saying,
I mean,
Stan.
yeah, I work with a lot of I work with strong women every day. I work with moms. I get like I'm a pediatrician. You know, it's dads don't know
Mhm.
anything. They don't know anything about medicines. Like ask them what's going on with the kid. I don't know. Whereas moms know every single like
Mm.
detail about the medicine and like they are the ones. And I work. I like if the dad brings a child in and like they don't know, like call mom, put mom on the phone. So I talk to the mom because the mom will so
That's just such a
society
bleak outlook
it's
on
such a
society.
weird it's a very
It's
no it's true
horrible. I'm very confused.
it's in Survivor it's a little different because the hierarchy is there. It's like I don't mean it like I don't think I've talked down to any of the women that I worked with in the game. I
Right.
had a really good relationship with Julia. Annie
No.
was giving we were like I know I'm like a foot taller than Annie and Julia, probably combine both of them I'm still taller, but like I think the whole game we were working together. But I think it's not a woman thing, it's a Julia thing.
Well, the
Julia,
indecisiveness, sure.
correct, because if it was Veronica and I'm like, yo, Veronica, this is what we're doing. And Veronica would have been okay if Veronica was Julia and Veronica was like, okay, I should have gone first. I have
Veronica
this
is
idol.
Julia.
I'm gonna play it on myself because
Maybe
I'm
you're
gonna get
right. Maybe it's a
votes.
Julia
And
thing.
then Robin, and then Kristen, why don't you play yours for Robin? I voted for Danny. Let's get Danny out now.
Well, I
But
think
that
also
was
that like you I think in Survivor you're so trained to think like, okay, well if you have this really elaborate plan, it can go really wrong. And at that point, I think Julia and Veronica had absolutely no traction in the game.
no, I don't
Uh,
think, and that's the thing. Like, why, if Julia said something to Sharif and Danny, they wouldn't acknowledge it as the same way as I would say thing to Sharif and Danny because I had way more traction than Julia did with Sharif and Danny. I put in the work. There it was a premeditated relationship with Danny. I didn't have to put in as much work with Danny, but I put a lot of work in with Sharif, and that's my choice. I thought to myself during the swap tribe, oh my God, there are a lot of big men. If I took out these men, I would be the biggest target, and I can't win all immunities. I wasn't even planning on winning the first four. So if I had 3 or 4 big dudes that are all strategists, very smart players in their own regard, it would muddy the playing field a lot. It would take a lot of heat off me because I'm not the tallest guy. I'm suddenly the third tallest guy because Andy and Sharif are there, and just like, but I suddenly look short if you put us all in like a thing. So I'm not the most salient guy, right? I didn't make the big move strategically. I let Sharif call the Andy vote. I let Sharif really
mhm.
dictate the Robin vote. I didn't get my way. I was Veronica, and I didn't like kick and scream like, Sharif, why did you do this? Screw you, Sharif. Like I'll vote you out. Sharif, nah, let it happen. It was never gonna be me. Sharif would never have targeted me, but target. I wrote it down here because I had some notes. I was like, there was a confessional I made. I was like, I'm in a great position in this game because no one's really coming after me. People are protecting me. They're not protecting my allies, but they're protecting me. They're actually coming. My
Mhm.
allies are going after each other, and as long as it's not me and I'm in the crossroads and I don't get friendly fire like a bounce of an idol and whatnot, I think I'm good. So like I don't really have to do much if I can't. There was nothing I could do with the Julia vote. Could have done something, yes, but it would have buried my game alongside hers. I think it would have failed. Julia would have still gone home, and I would have gone next because I was showing how close I was with Julia. Julia was a sinking ship. And so the only way I think in hindsight I could have played that differently to answer your question is to not say anything and just be honest with Julia and tell Julia what actually transpired. Like, Julia, I came to you. I told you that Danny was going to play the nullifier on you, and there was nothing I can do. I was being
Right.
100% honest, and I was. And I think instead of versus a Robin where I was scrambling. I was trying to, holy shit, did I do? I just got Robin's name out there, and there's so many votes in Robin. Let me flip the script and flip it on Veronica, who threw my name. Let me get Kristen. Let me get Julia. Let me get me. Robin, that's 4. Danny's with Kristen, so that's 5. I didn't anticipate that Danny voted. Because if Danny voted for Veronica, Veronica would have been out.
Yeah.
Right? And why would Danny vote out a green? It didn't make sense in my head. And I thought it was just, and then, I think, I would have, don't know where Annie would have gone, but like I had 5. The 3 of us, me, Julia, Robin, and then Kristen and Danny, who wouldn't want to get rid of a green, especially after Andy just got blindsided. So I think Robin going home with that taste in their mouth, that I really tried to scramble to get them saved, and they know that, despite me, my mistake, and everyone's spill. Like, I think that favored them to lean towards voting for me to win, whereas my last words in Julia's mouth was sour. It was like, play it for me. And so she
That
was
makes
very
sense.
hurt. And, I don't think there's there's no such thing as a bitter jury on Survivor. It's how you put them there. I put Robin in a way that, although I made a mistake of spilling it, I think I tried my best to rally, and we fell short. And the Sharif camp kind of won. Whereas in Julia, I shouldn't have done anything, but I made drama when there shouldn't have been. And that's a really uncharacteristic of my game. But nobody plays a perfect game. The same thing, I guess the next thing with Veronica, I didn't deserve Veronica's vote because I voted for Veronica twice, like threw her name in the mud, came after her. We were working super close in Iona, but I learned something, because instead of just being angry and mean and the old standards be like, I'm a villain, I'm gonna cut you if you throw my name out there, and I still did. When Sharif offered Veronica's name on a silver platter, I took it. Why would I keep? I mean, it's there. Like, I'll take it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason for me not to, take it. But Veronica and I ended on a good note. I think Veronica had a really good conversation on her way out. We patched things up. I'm like, Veronica, I get it. Like, you voted, you wanted to target me. It got back to me, and no hard feelings. I get it. And there's nothing I can do. She's like, you can vote for me if you can vote for me if I'm gone, and you don't think the numbers are. So, and I'm like, I really enjoyed playing with you, and I gave her a hug. This was not filmed. So Veronica and I admitted it in the final tribal, where I'm like, my mistake was going apeshit on Veronica when I didn't have to, right? She's admitted people are allowed to target people, but the reaction was, and it didn't play a perfect game. But I think the way I sent Veronica home mattered. Like, Annie was under the impression that I voted with her, but it was Kristen. Although I did publicly say in one of the every strategy rounds in the final 7, I was like, I'm not writing Annie's name down. I don't care.
I remember seeing that.
I was like, I don't care. And Annie was there, and like Sharif and Danny and Kristen were there, and I was like, I'm not writing Annie's name down. So you guys pick someone else.
My question about that round, though, is you played this idea of not wanting to be a big threat, but you're a big boy. That immunity challenge of all of them, it was OTEP. It's about answering questions, bringing back the blocks. If you wanted to throw that challenge, you could have easily thrown that challenge.
Yeah.
And your threat level continues to stay low. Sharif and you were the last 2 left standing. You, Sharif, and Danny were the last 3 standing. Why did you choose to win that challenge when it really didn't matter? And I felt like in that round, you kind of, like, Julia had just left. It was most likely going to be Veronica or Annie next. So what was your purpose? Did you want to put on your resume, or did you just want safety so you can just like feel 100% secure? What was it?
I think after the Robin advantage expired, I wanted to win every challenge. Back to people forgot pre-merge Stan. People forget that I was dominant in challenges pre-merge. Like, just because I lost like all 4 first merge challenges, like I think Andy won 1, Sharif won 1, Kristen won 1 or 2. I didn't really want, but I had it in me to win. I just didn't want it to be. I think in Survivor, I have enough traction, and every challenge that I win is a one less challenge that I can, one less tribal that I can be blindsided in. Because
Yeah,
Danny
I was gonna
couldn't
say.
touch me in the final 7.
I think that the end game wins are great because it means that a whole round of conversation can take place not about you,
Yeah,
and you can stay out of the
the
watchful
crosshairs.
eye of your yeah, exactly. So
Yes,
it allows everybody to, like, have these strategic conversations about thinking like, "Oh, well, I'll vote out this person," and maybe they don't ever consider you, and they lose
yes,
sight of you a little bit.
yes, and that's exactly what happened. Like there were plenty of targets in the final 13. I was so insulated that I didn't have to win the challenge. But as people went, not final 11, like as Jeremy went, as Andy went, the numbers started dwindling. Robin got blinds. I got blindsided. Julia went home with a nullifier play. Like enough is they can, and then my name also came out there. Veronica had already thrown my name out. Although I had Sharif and Brienne protecting me, Annie was never going to write my name down. And I had a pretty decent relationship with Kristen and Danny at that time, and we had the big boys kind of undertow. I think I was fine, but people are smart. This is a really strong cast, and you could put 2 and 2 together and just be like, but who's actually running the game? That guy with the crazy pants. Let's take him out now while he's not immune,
I forgot
right?
about the crazy pants.
Not the pants.
It worked. I
Do
was
you have
told that Frank says that it like makes people think you're crazy enough that you can that the crazy people like the outward hippie people would like approach you, but like make you interesting enough that you don't kind of blend in as a boring player. I don't
do you
know.
still have
I don't.
those pants?
I
That's the
do
question.
actually.
All
I
right.
do. But it's I don't know. It was just kind of nice to wear it because it was cold at night. But I didn't. I wanted to change into shorts, but it was freaking raining the
Yes.
whole
Yeah.
day. That's mind you. One more thing is the hurricane. It did not bother me at all.
That's
I was
surprising.
I
Well,
was
some people weigh like 40 pounds soaking
I
wet apparently, and
know.
so they
Well,
were
I also
they
yeah
were like
I
little chihuahuas in the rain. I felt
yeah
bad.
I also was like I was born in the Philippines. There's a lot of thunderstorms and rainstorms there. We don't get snow, we get rain. So rain is like we're cool. We play
Yes.
in the rain. That's like I'd win challenges in the rain, and I did in the final 4. But like I was pretty competitive in the Statue of Liberty one, and then the balancing one that's in the rain. So I tried to win every challenge from here on in because I knew I had the resume. I knew I had this perfect record. I knew I had the like we're playing like chess here, not checkers, but like I was thinking 2 3 moves ahead. I think in the final 7 or 8, I was like, if I'm the only purple in smack dab in between these 2 greens and blues, I'll win. I have a good chance of winning. And then next confessional, Danny was like, if Stan doesn't go here, Stan makes it and he wins. I think that's when I made I can't remember. There was a move I made and everyone's like, ooh, that was weird. I can't remember what it was, but people were like, Stan's a big threat. And Brienne was like, Stan's a big threat. And I'm like, oh, and then Otef comes along and I win. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're cool. I don't care. We take Veronica out. And done and dusted. On to the next one. But it's I don't know. The challenge beast was back, and I was I think I won a lot of challenges. I would like to take credit for a lot of the pre-merge challenges, not all, but like a lot of them, and 2 post-merge challenges because you know I I'm a big threat, and I like made myself this massive pre-merge threat, and I like kind of crumbled down and just let everyone do their thing and people forgot about me almost. And then in the final 7, yep, I'll win one, and then put myself in a good position moving forward.
When you get to the final 6, though,
Mhm.
the big question for me is, do you feel like Annie was the vote that you really wanted? But if not, who would have been the one that, if you could decide to vote out, would have been?
I wanted Annie in the final 3 with me.
That's what I
Yeah, that I
thought.
mean, yeah.
I wanted Annie in the final three. Like Kristen wanted Danny, and Danny wanted Kristen, and Sharif wanted Brienne. I wanted Annie with me pretty badly. Um, and I would have probably gone for Kristen or Danny at that point. Um, I think I was a lot closer with Sharif and Brienne, and we could have been like, hey, us four. And I would have gone, if Kristen went home, we'd keep the big boys till the final five. And there was a scenario that I was bouncing to the boys that, like, the three of us could sit to the final three together, and it'd be like the most misogynistic final three in the history of LRGs. But like, we succeeded. In the final nine, there were three men.
Wait.
There were three men. Everybody
And 3
else
women.
could have. And
Yeah.
no, in the final nine, after Andy went home, the majority, they could have
Right.
picked us off one by one, but people like, so
And they should
Robin,
have.
Julia, Veronica, Annie went home back to back to back to back, leaving Kristen and Brienne with me and the three boys. And they could have easily taken up the guys, starting with Danny.
Yeah.
Save me, let me be the last man standing. But like, Danny could have easily gone home had people
There
been
was
like,
but there was that moment, Sam, if you remember, like Kristen was the target, and it like, even just watching back the footage, I really felt like Kristen was about to get voted out, but then Danny stepped his foot down and said, "No, I'm not doing that." Do you remember like that whole interaction? And why did Danny get precedent over what you, Brienne, and Sharif wanted? I feel like.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I think Sharif and Danny are close. And I think, and another reason why I could have kept Annie, I could have pushed for Annie to stay, but I was thinking to myself, if I get to this final five and I'm the swing vote, I can choose who goes to the end with me. And if Annie goes home with 4 votes, and me being, I'll just vote Annie because it's 5-1. I don't have a choice but voting Annie instead of trying to counteract what Sharif and Danny wanted. I just kind of almost let it happen because it would be an uphill battle for me to try to protect Annie. And then I put myself in the most amazing position in the game and make Sharif happy. Like, I think I wrote it down. Like, my relationship with Sharif, we're very similar people. We base our game off a really strong strategic game and trust. And I think with every vote that we went from all the way from Jeremy to the Andy blind side, maybe not the Robin, but we had talked about it. It was me, Danny, and Sharif kind of talking about it. Sharif's like, I want Robin. I'm like, I want Veronica. And Danny's like, I don't know. Ended up going with Sharif. The Julia vote, I let Sharif do whatever he wanted. The Veronica vote handed me on silver platter fine. Like, I never gave Sharif a reason to distrust me. And walking into the final five, I still never had given Sharif a reason all game to distrust me. And I think that's part Sharif's naivete, but that's also part of how I wanted to frame it. There's a way to, if I'm a very extroverted person. I like to take credit, but and moves I make and whatnot. I'm not someone who's like, oh, let me just fly under the radar and swing low, sweet chariot, and like someone drag me to the final three and get 0 votes. But I was cognizant that if I became salient at any point in time, I'd be done. People, if my name came out way too many times as big of a threat, who I like, one of the games I really studied and I really, really gravitated towards is Chaos Cast in Cambodia.
Interesting.
Chaos Cast in Cambodia. Chaos Cast has a reputation in Cagayan. Good or bad, love her, hate her, she's loyal, but like she'll fight and scream and kick and scream to get her way, and she has a tongue, cut her ear. But then she had the Witches Covenant in Cambodia, kind of like the big boys, Abby Maria Wentworth and Husiera Easton, was it? But I think what Chaos Cast did wrong, she was fine. Everyone thought, oh, Chaos Cast first boot Cambodia, but Cass went so far into the merge, and in the merge she opened her mouth, tried to make a move, and guess what? Everyone's like, "Oh, it's Cass. Chaos Cass is back. Let's take Cass out." And she's Queen of Ponderosa. Had I become, "Oh, let's take Jeremy out. You vote Jeremy. You vote Jeremy. You vote Jeremy. You vote Jeremy," and I said so. And suddenly, next round, oh, Stan just took a big shot at Jeremy. Why don't we take? And then I'm like, next round, let's blindside Andy. Let's all come together. Hi ho! Like, let's bring the flag of the new alliance and take out Andy. Like, then I'd suddenly be the biggest threat. But what I did was I just kept on flying as low as I possibly can. I never can be UTR and EDGIC, but because I'm too loud. But there were times where I didn't. I basically bit my tongue because my plan was already executed, was being executed by someone else. I didn't have to take credit for it. I think
Right.
Sharif, I think if I had sat next to Sharif in the final tribal council, he'd be like, "But I made all these moves." And I'm like, "But I have made all these moves happen." Danny would have gone home if it ended up in the merge if it wasn't for me. And there was no way you can flip Julia, Veronica, and Annie to take out Andy. I did that, Like, there's a lot of moves that Sharif like spearheaded, and he was the figure that really made it happen. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. That's fine. Like, you can do whatever you want, Sharif, as long as it's not me. Which kind of sucks for it sounds bad because it's like me leaving my allies to just fizzle off. But like, what was I gonna do with a Julia vote?
Right.
What was I gonna do with a Veronica vote? What was I gonna do with the Annie vote when the four of them had already decided Annie? I'm like, okay. But they wanted purple out except for me. And I took that and that was part, strategic passivity in this game. You need to know when to strike and when to just tell the next person who you want to striking, and let them strike, and you just be like, okay, I'll just do it. Perception is reality, I think, and if they perceive you to be the one calling the shots, you're gonna have the biggest target. And our problem is, Kristen and Brienne and Annie and Julia they've all said in interviews, it's difficult in Survivor for a smaller woman to play because their voices aren't heard, right? They're like, they don't know, like, it's like, let a guy play, and I'll never be able to kind of walk in the game and expect to be underestimated like people underestimate Kristen. I would never be able to walk in a game and expect to be underestimated like, oh, she's a short Asian girl, Julia. Like, Danny, on the flip side, will never be able to not be targeted at a merge vote. It's a dichotomy. Like, I can't just be like, oh, I'm just this meek person. No, I'm a threat. We all know that. Like,
Well,
we could win challenges, but
Well, I think that, what's interesting is I think that in many ways, Stan, you ended up playing the Michelle Fitzgerald game, right? Like, you ended up playing the I don't go to tribal council until the merge, and I kind of like have a lot of people looking out for me, whatever. But Survivor, I think I think as Survivor fans, it's important to like shake up the notion of what a Survivor winner really is. And so, like, Stan, a Survivor winner can be a person who never goes to the tribal councils before the merge, or like a Survivor winner can be like a friendly guy who's won challenges and like is like kind of loyal to his allies, or a Survivor winner can be like a girl who's won immunity challenges and like has been in the know and has been working strategically, but not always controlling the vote. And like, I think that's why we so rarely see in Survivor a vote split that's like that's 4-3-2, and I think it's a testament to the fact that everybody can be a valid Survivor winner, and that you guys all played a really interesting game in their own way.
Absolutely. I think, and part of playing a good game is knowing yourself, knowing who you are, what you can bring to the table, what people can perceive you as, what people stereotype you as. And how do you maneuver your game towards that? Like, there's only one me. I can only play in my body. I can't ever be a white blonde man with muscles walking into Survivor. I can't be a short skinny Asian woman. Like, I'm like a moderately fat Asian gregarious guy who happens to work in healthcare.
List
Like,
every person you think has ever been on Survivor. Every breakdown in body type.
right. I mean, you have to understand the archetype that you bring to the table and then capitalize on that. Play the game that fits your archetype for you to win. And I think that's a testament to our season because there were so many people that could have won. Like Sharif and I had a very similar archetype, I think. Like we have the same, but I was thinking the other day, speaking, and I wanted to kind of bring this up. The final, so have you guys watched Traders?
Yeah.
Peacock
I've heard of.
Traders.
The
So
traitors? Yeah.
the traitors. Stephanie
I just
Lagrosa was
I just
Sharif.
got Peacock.
Okay.
Stephanie
watch
was
it.
Sharif, and I was Suri. Like Stephanie
Yeah.
could have taken out Suri anytime she wanted, but she trusted Suri 100%. And then Stephanie could have won the game for sure. But like it's interesting. Like you gotta blow as much smoke as possible because otherwise you're just a walking target. And that's me. Like there's no question. Like I can't hide my target from Danny. Danny knows. Kristen knows. But I think part of it was striking at the right time. A lot of it was timing. Had I made a move in the final 8, a major strategic move, I would have been a walking target at 7, 6, 5, and 4. Right? Like
Right.
almost like Jesse in 40, what's he sneezy? 43. But Jesse couldn't win a challenge to save his life.
Right.
Right?
Well, I also think Jesse had that story too. So I mean,
Correct.
Unfortunately, Stan, you don't have like children you love very much or anything.
But it's also not for $1 million, so
exactly.
Who cares? Play for the vote for the best game, I think. Yeah, that's why I can never be a physician. I can never be a doctor on Survivor. No one's gonna give me the $1 million on Survivor, like as a doctor. No one will. So
Stan, I want to ask about the final 5 vote. I mean, it's really such a big pivotal vote.
Do we have to talk about the final 5?
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to talk about it because it's almost 1 a.m. Stan. So let's go through it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the final 4 vote. I mean, I don't think we need to discuss it just because it's something we understand what happened there. It's very straightforward. But the final 5, like, it's this very own like moment in the game where like you're kind of with the Brienne and Sharif, but then Sharif doesn't give you the answer very clearly. You can see in that footage of you two in the tent, and I think that's when you start to really turn your gears. Like, okay, something's not right here. You talk to Kristen. She knows you. She knows what to say and how to say it and how to phrase it.
So
even if she doesn't mean it, I could tell because I've been lied to her by her before in a game. She knows how to lie or tell half truths.
Yes, and I think it was a half truth. I saw it as a half truth.
Yeah.
I was like, Kristen can still very well vote for me in the final 4. I think.
Right.
Look, honestly, I was willing to lose to Sharif. I've done it before.
That's my question: is why put this hard decision on yourself, Kristen versus Sharif? I was thinking, why not you just say, listen, I'm going to vote for Brienne. Tell the 2 greens, you guys want to stay? You guys both vote for Brienne because I felt like you were very disconnected to her at that point.
Yeah,
at least in the final 4, you could have had 3 people you really wanted to go to the end with, where Brienne, you never really wanted to go to the end with her.
Yeah, I think, I mean, let's call the obvious. Sharif would have crushed anyone in the final 3.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
And when that opportunity came and he didn't show me 100% loyalty, or I didn't perceive that 100% loyalty, it was time to cut Sharif. I think it took a lot because it was very hard. Trust me, I don't like voting off friends.
Right.
I have
Also,
many years ago, but like to win, but like
at the confessional,
what? Sorry, you cut off.
oh, okay, sorry, my thing is being slow. Um, did you make your decision at the voting booth, or did you kind of really have a strong idea, like after Kristen's conversation?
So the answer is I already had made up my decision, but it was very hard. And there, I don't know what could have changed it. It didn't, obviously, but I think I was I can't remember. Was it Liska feeling me? But I had a f- I had a confessional before going to tribal council when everyone was frozen, and I told everyone, like, Sharif, if you're watching this right now, man, I was ready to go to the final three with you and probably lose. But you didn't. You shook. You gave me the wrong answer. You gave me the answer I didn't want to hear. Like, you're gonna, if Danny wins immunity, then I'm gone. I gotta get rid of you. And I think at that point I made the decision to vote out Sharif. I think I wouldn't, you know, I didn't like it, but
Yeah.
the next I had to be done. I think if I'm playing to win. I'm not, like, I think that's a lesson. I'm very loyal to my people, but I've gotten burned in minis before where I took my buddy to the final three and I
Right.
lost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and honestly, if I cut the person that I think is the biggest threat to win in the final four, my hope is, or final five, my hope is that they respect my game. And, I didn't do him any wrong. I just did what had to be done in classic Survivor fashion, which is take out the biggest threat at final five.
But how did you feel, watching it back and seeing that he did not vote for you in the end? Like that was a big shock to me, and I felt like,
Yeah.
I
I
felt like it was a little bitter. But then when I talked to Sharif, he said, "Oh no, I wasn't bitter. I was with Danny the whole time, and I got to see his game, and he did have to, put up a fight."
Yeah, we've talked about this many times, me and Sharif, and I don't think there's a I don't think there's a bitter jury on Survivor. Russell Hantz did not lose twice because of a bitter jury. It's how he put them there. I lost Julia's vote is because how she went out. I think I got Veronica's vote is because how I put her, I made her feel on her way out. Um, I think it has a lot to do with Sharif's being his first game.
Mm.
It kind of hurts to get voted out so close, regardless if he's bitter or not. I don't think Sharif will ever admit that he'll be bitter, but there has to be a sense of like, I trusted you. You can tell in his final words, he's like, but man, I shook his hand. I shook Stan's hand. Like, good game. Like, I shook his hand. Like, I shook his hand. Like, I shook. Come on, Stan. Like, and like, you can sense that he was hurt. He's over it now. We joke about it. I got him a little cameo from King George because we're really good friends. I
Yeah.
think Sharif's one of my closest friends in the LRG community. Period. Like, ever. We just get along on a different level, but I have to win an LRG before I retire. And I wasn't gonna let Sharif just walk to the end with a crown because I've learned that lesson before. I've lost to my friends in the final three. I've won my fair share of minis and orgs, blah blah blah, in the past. I've lost so many. I've gotten 1 vote, 0 votes in the final three before. It's how Survivor is. I don't blame Sharif for his decision. One time, actually, I'll bring this up. I'm glad this is on StreamYard for everyone else to see. Sharif texted me, and he was like, "Oh, in season 19 of Survivor, he who must not be named should have won because he played a great strategic game, or at least gotten more votes than he should." And I was like, did Jesse? So he's like, "Oh, I respect strategy enough, blah blah blah." And I was like, "So do you think Cody should have voted for Jesse in 40?" He's like, "Absolutely, man. Like, Jesse voted out Cody." And like, but he had to respect his game, and I think Cody would have absolutely voted for Jesse, and I should have texted him like, "Must be nice, huh?"
Oh God.
And he was like, "I just tried to make it like
We're
more
starting a
interesting.
war.
It's okay, we're over it." I'm like, I honestly, I love these games so much, but like at the end of the day, it's a game. Who cares? I've gotten LRGs have like humbled me so much in ways I didn't need. Like I've gotten
Hmm.
pre-merge multiple times. It's not a great feeling to get voted out third. I gotten third so many, like three. I got third more times than my jury, like third boot. Like
Oh,
Oh, I thought
it's
you were going to say
I thought
third place. Who's
no,
complaining about third
no,
place?
third
that
boot. Like
sucks.
I've gotten third boot more times than I made jury. And I know what it feels like to get the short end of the stick sometimes, and coming like massive threat, blah blah blah, flying to New York and just getting axed. Like that doesn't feel good. But at the end of the day, like you have to separate your. It's a game, and I was able to like I vote bitter historically, like 6-7 years ago. I vote very bitter in the jury, but now I've kind of like I respect the game, um, and I'm not. I think Sharif should have voted for me because game recognized game, and he acknowledges that I crushed it because I also think the only time he realized that I was actually playing a strong strategic and social game was in the episodes. But because he was like, "Oh wow, like we were talking about how like your strategy actually came out of the episodes, but never in the game," and that was a purpose. I didn't want people to know what I was doing. It all came out in the confessionals, but I didn't in the final tribal. But a lot of it has to do with you know it hurts. It hurts to get voted out. It hurts to get so close. And it's your first time too. It was the
Yeah,
first stab. Is the first I put the first knife in Sharif. Like,
and he'll never forget that.
Us LRG
Yeah.
people are so used to getting stabbed, like
But I
metaphorically
also
in these
I
games.
really liked the reasoning that Sharif gave about voting for Danny in our exit interview with him. I thought it was a lot. Yeah, I think it really showed uh, what you have to respect about how Danny played and the hard work he had to put
I
in.
am not. Yeah, I am not taking any
Yeah,
votes away from Danny. I think Danny
no,
really
no,
deserved what he got. I think Danny, in Danny's defense, like he would like Danny and I don't get this far in games, right? That's why in
Right.
Final
no.
Four, Danny, when I won immunity, and I told Danny, we had a long talk, like, "Yo, Danny, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of us for making it this far, and I'm not writing your name down in the final four. Like, I want us to be able to plead our case to the jury. You know, did I think I can beat Danny? Probably. I think would have a better shot at beating Danny than I would have with Sharif. But I wanted to give Danny that opportunity, and if I lost against Danny, then it's okay. I think Danny played a really strong, calculated, a little erroneous now when it comes to like a little paranoid and like spilling stuff that wasn't privy of during the game. Um, and like the final tribal mess up was not his best day.
But really funny.
But really funny.
And iconic.
I didn't know that Veronica was between Danny and I. Sharif, I
Yeah.
think, was between Danny and I. Andy said he was between Danny and I. All of them voted, and Julia was between me and Kristen. Um, and then the rest was history. I think Annie was between me and Kristen. Um, I wasn't sure about Robin. I think
That's
Robin
pretty
was pretty.
impressive of that. At least if
Yeah,
you were not someone's first choice,
I was
you
the
were
second
always the
choice.
second.
Yeah,
And that's
I
like,
think. Yeah,
it's big. I feel like
yeah.
that's
I think
very big.
if Sharif had to revote, if Sharif and Andy had to revote, if it was a tie between me and Kristen, I think I would have gotten Sharif's vote, maybe Andy, because of the tumultuous relationship Kristen and Andy had. And like, I wasn't sure. I don't know. I don't like to think about what ifs, not like you guys, but I think I would have had a shot, which is kind of also the mistake I made when they're like, who's rooting for you in the jury? And I'm like, oh. Stan, you need
Oh
to eat some
yeah,
humble pie. You need to
you
eat
said
some
everyone's name.
humble pie.
But
And I'm like,
Danny said something interesting. If there was a tie,
he would have
he
voted for Kristen.
yeah, and then I think if vice versa, Kristen had to make this decision, I think
She
she
would have
would have
voted
voted for Danny.
Danny.
And I never crossed my mind that it could have happened, but after the votes got cast, and then I even didn't even think about a 4-4-1 scenario, and it could have happened, and that
yeah,
would have been
and
like
I think
scary for
it
you.
would have been, and if Sharif and Brienne were in the final three, the Sharif would have voted Brienne, Brienne would have voted Sharif. That
Yeah,
was a consequence that I purposely chose by sacrificing Annie in the final six and putting myself in the situation where I can choose in the final five, fully knowing that if I brought a pair to the final three, I wanted to bring a pair to the final three. It was a blue pair or a green pair. I wanted to get a fair chance at the other colors' votes. I think that
that
was
makes
what I
sense.
was coming in with. Is that I'm going with blue or I was going with green? There was one time I entertained the big boys, but like that was not never gonna happen. I would have to do extra work for that instead of just like falling in place and making a decision. But by voting out Sharif and Brienne, I knew I wasn't getting Brienne's vote because in the final, Brienne and I never really truly we were like close. We were working together through Sharif, so we built a lot of trust there. But I think Brienne and Danny were the two people that really threw my name out subtly every round or every other round. Veronica was the one who pulled it public. But I think that I knew I wasn't going to get Brienne's vote, but I had Ed locked by taking out Sharif. And then I had a chance, if Sharif recognized game, that I had a chance at Sharif's vote. So that would be two blues for me and one blue going to Kristen. And then I would then that's already two in my head. So I was like, all right, if I take out blue right now, and that's inevitably that's part of my decision. Who do I take out? Do I take out Kristen? And I think I could have gotten Kristen's vote if it was Sharif and Brienne. I'm not sure. She could have voted Brienne. I think Brienne would have gotten a lot of votes. Sharif would have gotten a lot of votes. I think I would have lost. There's a chance. Like, I don't know. Danny would have voted Sharif. Andy would have voted Sharif. Robin probably would have voted Sharif. I don't know. Maybe Veronica and Julia would vote for me, but like I'm not sure. People
Yeah.
vote for Brienne with the same story that Kristen had. Like Kristen got a
No.
lot. Like the
I think it would have been you or Sharif. No offense to Brienne at all. I just think in terms of that jury and in terms of the gameplay,
Yeah, if
like
Brienne wasn't away from Sharif, then she's
yeah,
yeah.
unfortunately the jury just thought that Sharif had, like the plans and Brienne followed. But the three purple girls never played with Brienne. Jeremy,
interesting.
didn't really play with Brienne for too
That's
long.
true.
So I think it really would have been between the two of you.
And I would have
I think you would have gotten at least 3 to
three, and
4
I might have
votes.
won Robin's vote actually.
Right.
Robin said that they were gonna vote for Sharif, but like there was a chance if I can, articulate that Sharif was literally the Jedi. May the fourth be with you, the Jedi, and I was like the Yoda in the background making it happen, zing, zing, like making it all happen. But I wasn't the one like outwardly like, oh, let's get these people out. But that was my strategy. I think I tried to play under the radar as much as possible. When I could play under the radar, there wasn't a lot of
Right.
instances, but I think it really worked. I think a lot of it's luck. A lot of it is luck. Like
And Stan, while I'm reading the final votes, did you think you were going to win? And then did you think it was going to be as close as it was?
when I heard like Kristen's pitch, um, I was like the only time in the game I was truly nervous was on the reading of the votes. I was like, ooh,
Mm.
like the Kristen started coming out, and I was like, oh, maybe I didn't. Well, Kristen had an amazing, spiel, and so did Danny. I think, minus the mishap, Danny would have gotten three, and I don't know what would have happened. But I think the final tribal council was like very chill. Like we would have won. Any one of us would have won a game. Any other game. The game in the final tribal was strong enough for any of us to have won a different game that
Yes.
wasn't just against each other.
Yeah.
It's just
That's a good
such a
point.
strong final tribal. All
Yeah.
three. There wasn't a weak final. Like give Kristen all credit and Danny all the credit, and that was my choice. I think I chose to sit next to Kristen and Danny. I was ready to lose to either of them, but I was going to give my fair shot. I knew, like I said, I understand myself. I understand the game that I played. I just had to articulate it, and the gift of gab, has to be turned on at the final tribal council and
Right.
state your case. Why do you deserve to win? I think you know. A lot of people in their exit interviews would have voted differently, but at the end of the day, it's what you make people feel at that very moment in time. It's without the edit, without the moves, and I think I wasn't rude. I didn't like I didn't have anyone that I really crossed directly, maybe except Jeremy loosely, but we never really had a tight bond to begin with. We were really aligned through Veronica. And I never, and even when Veronica and I had a little tiff, I wasn't, and I was human, like a human being, like everyone else. But I just played the game. I think enough people respected that and recognized that. But it was not a perfect game by any stretch. It looked perfect on paper, but I could have lost many, many times, many, many times. If Sharif accidentally hit his head on a tree, and he's like, "Oh, damn, Stan's a threat. Let's take Stan out." Sharif would have taken me out. He's
Yeah,
probably
that's
hitting
true.
his head on a tree. I could have just voted out Stan now, but he didn't. Um,
Yeah.
but I think
So
Sharif is an incredible player, an incredible friend. I actually got him to apply to Real Foot 10, and he got fifth place again. I'm
Oh,
like,
I thought
oh
you were gonna say
no,
Real Survivor, and I was gonna be like, we need Sharif on Real Survivor so
we need
badly. Oh
Sharif
my
on Real
god.
Survivor.
yes,
Can you
I've told him that
imagine
so many times that he could get on, and
if?
he has never responded. But I think it might have to do with his job. So
Yeah, I mean it's very
maybe
difficult. It's
Mm.
very difficult to get time off. But Sharif would be incredible on Real Survivor, and now he won't make the same mistake twice. You better not, Sharif. You better not make the same mistake twice. But
damn.
everyone could have, like, he could have, like, that's at the end of the day, you take out the biggest threat, whether or not they vote for you to win.
Right.
Like, that's just how you do it. It's classic Survivor 101. And if Sharif didn't become as salient as he was, people wouldn't have recognized it.
Right.
Another, he could have played a little bit more subtle, but
So,
Mhm.
Dan, I just want to get into your final thoughts about like the experience and
Yeah, do you have
you
a
being
favorite
on
memory
the
from the game?
yeah.
I think the favorite memory I have for the game was winning that final four immunity. I think that's the only time in the game where, like, I almost or maybe cried or like shed a tear. Because, like,
Yeah.
we all know it's an LRG. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme.
Right.
Who cares if I win? No one cares. It doesn't change like how I in my job. It doesn't change anything. It really doesn't. I didn't win money for it. Glory. Okay, cool. You can't put a price tag on glory, but, like, just being such a Survivor fan from when we were like 12 or 13, playing these online games, and now, like, like 20 years later, like, I'm in the same person's house that I, like, played with when we were children, and, like, I won immunity, which propelled me to the final three. I was like, that is insane. That was the best moment, I think, in my entire LRG career, winning that final immunity and having that. You know how, like, you get that moment where you get to plead your case to the jury? And I
Right.
knew I had a strong ass pitch. Whether or not I win or lose, I have a very strong case to win, and nobody can take that away from me.
True.
Yeah,
That's very
you
true.
know, and
Amazing.
to answer your first question, Chris, like, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you guys. We've come such a long way. Geez, Survivor New York Zero. When I was just testing your game, there's on prod. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. This really opened. Survivor in New York has really opened. Like, I've meet a real foot, and then real foot all the other games, and, like, have met so many amazing people, and this and it's all because of you. It was an honor to play Survivor New York 5, and this was the right moment where the stars truly aligned. I played 2 back-to-back games, 6 weeks apart after the pandemic, because I'm like, was all pandemic out, being a healthcare worker and being a frontline worker. Remember that? In masks and bunny suits and stuff. And to be able to play Survivor, Sharif said it best. He's like, we were in the pandemic, and like people were like not social at all, and like I was kind of in that same. I was isolated, like I was working for like, you know we were healthcare workers, and we didn't really, the pandemic was a war. That
Right.
was our war. And to be able to kind of let loose, Emily Paddock said it best. She's like, there's a little demon inside you that's just wanting to play, and you unleash it in its cage, and you go and you put him back in his little cage, and you hide it away, and you move on from your like your daily life again, because at the end of the day, this doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. But we're such Survivor fans, and for whatever it's worth, like it's pretty cool to win. I think one of the highlights, I'd probably say, like, ever for me, was to finally win an LRG, in a very close fashion. Made incredible, like, you make incredible friends everywhere. Whether you
Right.
play or not, you're on prod, you go third place, or you go third boot, or like jury or whatever, and you come back for attorney season, whatever. Like, you make friends along the way. But at the end of the day, like, hey, nobody can take away the fact that you finally got enough votes to win a game.
Yes.
I think, to me, that's like, it's an unbelievable experience. I didn't think I was gonna win an LRG ever.
And Stan, do you think that you will ever play an LRG again, or you're kind of good?
Like, there's nothing left to prove, honestly. I have played an LRG after, and everyone just took me out because I was such a big threat. Survivor Brooklyn South, like All Stars, like I just got taken out so early because, for many reasons. But I don't know if I have anything more to prove in an LRG world. Like, maybe when I get bored enough at work and I have like the time off, I'll be like, you know what, screw it. I'll apply to Real Survivor. Let's figure it out. But like, I don't know if I have anything else to prove in the LRG world. I'd love to, like, just be there, see what, I don't know. It's so hard also to carve out time with my job. I think weekend games are great, like it's easy, but it's so hard to carve out time now, and there's nothing else to prove. Like, what is there to prove? Like, it's all fun and games, and at the end of the day, I already accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And what's it what and I don't take these games seriously. Like, I'm extremely grateful with the amount of people I've met and have come into my life because of this experience. Like, you guys, the whole New York community, definitely is a huge. I'm not there anymore, but every time I make it to New York, like, everyone's great. We catch up like it was yesterday. But I think at the end of the day, it's an amazing experience. I would recommend for anyone to play an LRG. Everyone, apply to Survivor New York 7. Do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Stan
think
might
it's an
be
amazing.
there.
I'm actually there because I'll try to be there. Because I can fly overnight and be to New York. That's how much I love the community, and part of me also wants to watch the drama unfold in front of my own toys. At the end of the day, or a little, like in Brooklyn and Bannerman Island, it's like in the back watching all these people strategize. Like, okay, this is the vote. Okay, this is what you guys want. Let's do it.
My last question is: do you have any interest to go to Bannerman Island?
I would love to go to Bannerman. I would love
field trip.
Let's do it. I'd love to go to Bannerman.
That would be the most iconic thing, to have you there, just some pictures.
That's so amazing.
In front of the castle itself.
That's amazing. I remember. I would love to. Maybe when we're not busy with Survivor New York 7 when we come in. But I plan on let's do it. Let's do it. I'm 100% down. I think a lot of our cast would go to Bannerman Island.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. No, let's start a field trip.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, amazing. We have to wrap this up. But
we gotta go. Falling asleep.
Anything you like? Last quick words you want to say?
I think all love, all thanks to everybody. I'm so grateful that I took this opportunity to play. I was so busy. Carve out time if you really want to play these live games. They're life changing. Everyone says they're life changing, but like, geez, I met so many amazing people. I've learned so much about myself, like not just the wins, but also the losses. Times where you get kicked off like so early, and you're just whatever. It humbles you, and then when you win, it still humbles you. Like, oh shit, like I can actually do this. I'm not someone who really sugarcoats things. Like I'm a very open book, and like, I'm a very outgoing person, but it still means something. Not a million bucks, but it means something. It validates you, and it shows that it's, at the end of the day, it's not winning that's important. It's fun to win, but it's the relationships that you make that you'll keep forever. And that's what I got from this experience, and I'm forever thankful for that.
Amazing.
That's
Well,
awesome.
thanks for being here as always. Thank you to everyone who's listening, watching. We appreciate you so much. And we're gonna get to Veronica at some point. I can't wait to talk to her. But more importantly, apply for Survivor New York 7, tinyurl.com/SNY7 app.
Let's
And
go.
check us out on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Oh my God, everywhere. Join our Facebook group. The links are all there in the description. You know where to find them. Thank you for listening. Thank you,